Party's been sworn in. You may be seated. Ma'am, have a seat.
Is this your daughter?
Yes, it is.
Could you stand up next to her, please? I have as many questions for you as I have for her. Miss Lundberg, the junior Miss Lundberg, according to your complaint, this used to be your boyfriend. He lived with you in your mother's home for several years. And you had an agreement with him that you were going to work. He wasn't doing much. You paid the living expenses, but that when you went to college, you were going to stop working and he was going to support you. Well, you got ready to go to college, and all of a sudden the relationship was over, and he didn't support you. So you want $5,000 from Mr. Brown because he promised that he would take care of you when you were ready to go to school.
Yes.
Mr. Brown says that he worked, that he paid rent. As a matter of fact, he paid your mother rent every month, $300. Is that true?
Yes, that is.
And you didn't pay your mother rent, and the two of you lived together, shared a room?
Yes.
He said he did give you his check whenever he worked. You put it into your account. You paid the bills, so he doesn't owe you anything. There are a few questions that I have that I just have to get off my chest. The answers to these questions, I think, are going to be a revelation to people out there. Your daughter was how old when you let him move into the house?
She was 17 and a half.
She was 17, and you let Mr. Brown move into the house?
Your Honor, she was living with her father, and due to Mr. Brown's living conditions, she asked me so he could better his life if I would be kind enough to let him move into my house and be my roommate.
I did live with my father.
When did she move into your house?
She moved into my house after she turned 18.
So now she's 18, an old lady, and she's living in your house. So he lived with you for 6 months before she moved in?
Correct.
Because it was a week, correct?
Yes. I mean, she was with her father more than she was with me.
Miss Lundberg, I would no sooner let somebody come in and live in with my teenage daughter in my house than I would take a flying leap off the Brooklyn Bridge.
Your Honor, you don't know the living conditions he lived under. I wanted to keep him off the streets.
He wasn't your child. This is your child. Then, after she moves in with him, according to your daughter, they wanted to start a family. So they didn't start a family right away. They bought 2 dogs and 2 cats that they also moved into your house. You said that
it wasn't like that. I mean, what it was is we gradually got one of them. And then the other one, he worked at a veterinary hospital, and somebody threw the dog out of a window on the street, and so he brought it home because he knew that I wanted that kind of dog.
At the beginning of 2005, things were going really well between Chris and I, so we bought 2 dogs and 2 cats, and they were like our kids. That's what you wrote.
We already had the cats from before.
So not only did you get him, you got a family of 2 dogs and 2 cats.
Which I protested.
Protested? I wouldn't have protested.
Well, I told him
showed him the door.
To know the way he was living. I felt sorry for him.
Miss Lundberg, you're a very, very nice lady. If you feel sorry, do you have a house?
We're living in a house, yes.
Does the house have a garage?
Yes.
That's where he would be, not in the bedroom with my daughter. And the 2
she
cats
wasn't,
and the 2
Your
dogs.
Honor, she was at her father's.
She came home when she was 18.
When I was home. That's when she came home.
The majority of the time I was there when she was home. But yes, there was times when she was not home where I was at the house.
But she was not sleeping in his room. They had different rooms.
Your Honor.
The majority of the time I was in his room.
Oh, I was. Your Honor, I wasn't there all the time.
3 months after we started dating, they had asked me to come move in with them. I had a job at a restaurant at that time.
He did not have a job at a restaurant at that time. He moved in without a job, and I took him. Ms. Lundberg,
I have not finished with your mother because I don't think she can give me a cogent answer. I think that if she had to reflect on it now, having heard the fact that when she wasn't around, you sort of snuck around, she was being a good person, she wasn't anticipating that this whole problem started. Now you can sit down. Do you have other children, by the way?
I do.
How old are they?
27, 25, and 22.
So she's the baby?
She's the baby.
This is the last one you have to worry about?
Correct.
Had a girl. Does she still live home?
Yes.
Where are the dogs and cats?
Unfortunately, they're at my house because...
You see, you always get left with the grandchildren.
Yeah.
I take care of them.
How old are you now?
I'm 20.
Now, what makes you think Mr. Brown owes you $5,000?
He had to go to the emergency room because he was very sick, and he didn't have insurance, and so he had a bill of, it was roughly around $4,000, and he never paid it, and so it went to collections. So I told him, I was like, you know, usually with collections, they're really willing to work with you, and so he got it brought down to $2,356.96, and he did not have the money for that. The agreement was if you paid it now, they would drop it to that amount, and so I went ahead and I paid for it, and the agreement was that he was going to pay for it from my bank account.
Was he working at the time?
At that time, he had just lost his job.
For whom?
A boxing company, PCS, I believe.
I was working for Banfield, the pet hospital. I didn't start the boxing company until after this incident. And
how much were you earning?
At the veterinary clinic, I was making about $9.50 an hour.
How much did that translate to a week?
$250, $300.
And what did you do with the money?
All my checks were deposited in her account. There was periods where I did not have a job, that is true. But I was always paying the rent. I was paying for half the groceries. I was taking care of the animals. Like her cat got sick, $2,000 bill right there. I took care of it. I paid for it through my work.
Just a second. Did you get a discount for it?
Yes, I did.
Is that true?
Yes, the discount.
Just a second. He paid for your cat?
No, okay. It was both of our cat, and he told me that it was my
Just a
birthday
second.
present.
You have the cat.
I have the animals now because he moved to Washington and left them with me.
Okay, he said it was your birthday present.
Yes.
Then it's your cat.
Well, okay.
What do you mean so well, okay?
No,
It's
he
your...
said the bill for the cat was my birthday present. And it was brought down to $200. Then his dog that I have got really sick, so I took her into the vet and ended up paying $400.
That's what happens when you play house.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
The reason I moved out,
She supported ex-boyfriend Chris Brown for 3 years. Christina claims Chris is from a dysfunctional family.
You played house with this man. He took his paycheck and put it in your personal account.
But it wasn't how much he said it was. I have proof that his
I don't care how
check,
much it was. He worked and put his check in your account.
He couldn't get a bank account because he had bounced checks.
Listen to me. I don't care whether he could or
Okay.
whether he couldn't. He took his check, put it in your account. You paid bills out of that account.
His bills.
Well, whose bills are you going to pay? Bird's bills out of the account? He paid rent to your mother, and he paid that according to your mother religiously. He paid for, he says, food. How did you pay for the food?
well, I give my checks to her, and she said that half of
Just a second.
whatever the
So
grocery
you
bill
gave
was
your
coming out of
check
my-
to her?
Yes.
How did the rent get paid to Mrs. Lundberg?
She would give her mom the $300. She would pay.
So
half
you
the
didn't
grocery
pay
bill.
that directly. You put your money into the account,
took care of
whatever
all
it
the
was.
bills, yes.
Let's say it was $800 a month. So you had $300 for rent and $500 for everything else.
But he didn't have $500 left over. His average check was like $214 for every 2 weeks. That would only be like $450. I have statements showing of what he has deposited in my
Well, let
account.
me see. Let me see.
This is his last check. Well, one of the checks that he deposited.
Show me a lot of them, not just one
I
that you
don't have
selected.
the other statements with me.
Ma'am, I had actually asked the bank for the check stubs that I had because she deposited them in her account. They said I had to get permission from her.
Absolutely
or
right.
Access.
I'm not interested in the living expenses. Living expenses, he put his check into your account, you played house, that's what happens. All I want to know from you, Mr. Brown, is there was a bill of $2,356, according to her, for an emergency medical. And when was that?
I think it was like June of last year.
Is that when he reached the agreement with them for
No,
$2,356?
it was actually August 23rd of 2005.
Now, after August of '05, were you working?
Let me see. Yes, I was working at PCS Boxing Company.
How much would you say you paid her back of the $2,356?
That doesn't count the money that we saved like during the whole time. I did
didn't-
not spend my whole paycheck every time we were together.
You're going to have to prove that to me, sir.
I
And
can't
Your
without
Honor?
my
You're
check
going to
stubs.
have to prove that to me, sir. This was a recent bill, and based on this, she brought one bank statement for January of '05. Well, why did you just bring January
Because,
of
Your Honor,
'05?
he had actually moved out several times. And in September, he actually got a place of his own with his friend because he decided he wanted to see if he could do it on his own. And so he didn't even live with us, and he didn't even pay me any of his checks from August on. Right after this situation, he told me that, because I was going into anatomy for my nursing program, he told me that he wanted me to quit my job after I've been working there for 3 years.
So did you move in with somebody else, sir, after the
I
summer?
had went out and got my own apartment.
Fine. Then at that point, you weren't giving her any money.
No.
That makes my life much easier. So you didn't pay anything of this $2,356.
Yes, Your Honor, every check was in her account.
You didn't give her any more checks, sir, after you resolved this matter with the bank for $2,356. You didn't give her any more money. You moved out.
The reason I moved out, though, is because she flew all the way across the United States for some other guy. So
That's
I
not
was
just a
the
left.
second.
case.
That is not
Just a
true.
second.
That's not
Mr.
the case.
Mr. Brown, you want to discuss your social history and your social problems with her, go find another venue. In this venue, we talk about money. If in the summer of 2005, immediately prior to your moving out, I think was a very good idea, you incurred $56, which she paid, expecting you to continue to make payments into her bank account to cover that bill, and then you decided you wanted to live on your own, you owe her $2,356. But he doesn't owe you $5,000, madam. Just because somebody says to you, I'm going to support you when you go to college, doesn't mean they're going to do it.
What about half of the animal bills that have occurred with food and
Your Honor?
they're expensive?
Put your hand down. I'm not interested in what you have to say. This is your daughter's problem. She created it. with your assistance. She has to deal with it.
Christina Lundberg claims she supported ex-boyfriend Chris Brown for 3 years. Christina claims Chris is from a dysfunctional family.
If you can't afford the animals, get rid of them. Do you understand? If you love them and they're like your children, which is what you said here, then you take care of them.
I do take care of them.
Then that's just fine. That's what you do. You take care of them. You don't expect him to take care of them. They are not children. You don't expect him to take care of them, do you?
No.
Good. Then you take care of them. Babies wanting to play house with the assistance of their mother. I don't get it. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $23.56. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
We have Luke versus Ozanix. Step forward, please.
27-year-old Sadie Luke is suing heavy metal singer Lance Ozanix for ruining her dress during a performance. Lance says it's all part of his act.
Miss Luke, your complaint states that you went to see the defendant who was performing at a club. He's a musician. And while you were there, his conduct, which amounted to almost an assault on you, took place. You claim that during that almost assault, or attempted assault, he ruined your dress. You want to be compensated for the dress and for his actions.
Yes.
And Mr. Ozanix has an interesting defense, which he's going to tell me about in a moment. Tell me where you went and when to see him perform.
I didn't actually go specifically to see him perform. My husband and I were out having dinner in the area.
Was this a dinner club where he was performing?
Mm-hmm.
Had you ever been there before?
No.
Had you ever heard of his band before?
No.
Why don't you tell me in your own words what happened?
We decided to stop into the club. It's
You
called
told
the
me that.
Porter
I'm past that.
So I went to the front of the audience where the action is to watch the band a little
Was
closer.
everybody standing up? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they're a rock band.
Okay.
And they're dancing and going crazy and doing that kind of stuff. And Mr. Ozanix extended his hand to me. And it was, almost a sweet gesture, almost romantic. Like, he's going to pull some kind of Elvis move.
So he extended his hand to you.
Mm-hmm.
Was the stage raised?
Yes.
How did you get up on stage?
Worked my way on up.
What I'm asking you is there a step for you to get up? Or
It's not that much higher. It's about that high. It's not that difficult.
Okay,
I
so
just
you sort of crawled up on the
I
stage?
kind of sat on the edge.
Sat on the edge
Swung
and you got
my
up.
legs over. He helped me up.
What happened when you got there?
Well, he was kind of giving me this intense look by that point. He kind of got this crazed look on his face, at which point the audience started going really wild and crazy. At that point, I knew that something wasn't right and that this wasn't going to be the typical performance where, you get swooned on stage.
They weren't doing swooning music, were they?
No, they weren't, but, you go to see a rock band and you don't expect this kind of...
Hear any bad behavior yet?
This is the bad behavior right here. He leaned over his shoulder, and as he was coming back towards me, he threw up all over the front of me.
You did do that, didn't you?
Yes.
Why don't you explain to me why you did that, sir?
I'm a singer for a heavy metal band. We've been doing this for 2 decades. There are posters all over the nightclub showing people exactly what we do.
Well, show me. Show me an example of a poster that puts them on notice.
There's about 10 or 15 of these posted.
This doesn't give patrons notice that they're going to be assaulted by you, sir.
Your
This
Honor-
shows that there is somebody, some woman wearing a mask, and you're holding on to her breast, and some gunk is coming out of your mouth, but that wouldn't certainly suggest to me that you were going to do that to me. Looks like somebody's part of your act. Nothing gives you the right to assault a stranger.
It wasn't an assault.
Yes, it is. Whenever there is an unauthorized touching, there is an assault, sir.
I extended my hand out. I brought her up on stage. She knew exactly what was going to happen.
Well, how do you know what she knew?
The crowd was going crazy
How do you know what she knew?
because she didn't run away until I puked all over her.
Well, Mr. Ozanix, that would be a normal reaction.
We
Why
have been-
should she run away before you assaulted her?
If she would have seen the posters, should have known, people would have talking. We've been around for 20 years.
Mr. Ozanix, I know that this may come as a major shock to you. I have never heard of you.
That's
I
fine.
have never heard of you
We're an
or your
underground.
group. I've
we're
never heard
underground.
of you or your group. I don't know of you. Have you heard of him or his group?
What's the name of the group?
What's the name of your group?
Schizo.
Schizo.
Can't say as I have.
And, I am not a music aficionado, but Officer Byrd is a music aficionado. And if he's never heard of you, you are not necessarily a household name, sir. If I went into a club, if I were having a dream, and I went into a club, and you invited me on stage,
Yes.
I might have thought that I was going to dance around with the group. I certainly would not have assumed at all that I was going to be on the receiving end of your bodily fluids, sir. So I think that is disgusting. I think it's despicable. I wouldn't go listen to you. I wouldn't go and see you. And I certainly, sir, don't think that this is something that she should have expected when you invited her up on the stage, which you did. You invited her up on the stage. Your answer is sort of different. Your answer, Mr. Ozanek, says that she came up on the stage, but that's not true because you acknowledged that you extended your hand to her and you invited her up on the stage.
Yes.
Your throwing up all over her is an assault, sir, and she is absolutely entitled to damages, which she seeks of only $500. I would have asked for a lot more. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $500. That's all.
Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I thought it was fair. She seems...
You guys have been sworn in. You may be seated. Let's have a seat.
Mr. Flynn, it is your claim that Miss Taylor's son, this young man over here, who will now stand up and stand next to his mother, ran into and damaged your truck. He was driving a snowmobile.
That's correct.
And this happened on your property.
That's correct.
You also claim that Miss Taylor, when this happened, agreed to pay for the damages to your truck. She did not do that.
That's correct.
But she says that your truck actually hit her son's snowmobile and that she believes you should be responsible for fixing his snowmobile, which is considerably more than fixing your truck.
That's correct.
When did this happen?
December 13th at approximately 3:10 p.m.
And was this on your property?
This is a mobile home park, and it is private property.
You live in the mobile home park?
Yes, I do.
Do you? Look at me. What's your name?
Robert?
Robert, does your mother live in the mobile home park?
No, she does not.
How far away from there do you live?
3 blocks, maybe.
What were you doing driving on that property?
I was going to a football party at my friend's house for a Packer game.
And where does your friend live?
Like 2 houses down from him.
What's your friend's name?
Ricky.
Does that person live near you?
Yeah, he does.
I want you to walk over to this diagram, Robert, and show me where your friend Ricky lives.
It's not shown on here, but he lives right here. His house goes this way.
Okay. Now, which direction were you coming from?
I was coming this way like it shows, and then I was going straight here, and then he pulled his truck out of his spot, and then I tried to turn and swerve away from him, and then I hit him, and then I went more into the grass here.
So you hit him. That's what you just said.
He hit
you
me.
said, no, that's not what you just said. What you just said was, I hit him and swerved off.
Well, yeah, my snowmobile hit his truck, yes.
Right, that's what you just said. Your snowmobile hit his truck.
Yes.
Now, where did your snowmobile hit his truck?
Right behind the driver's wheel.
Was he backing out of the driveway?
No, he was not, but he turned out that way.
So he was coming out forward?
Yeah, and he turned out, though, at, like, pretty sharp. He didn't just gradually come out.
Mm-hmm. Come back here. Now, Robert, how fast were you going on the snowmobile?
I was going at almost an idling speed.
Well, if you were going at almost an idling speed, how come you hit an object? You hit him.
It was very icy out, and I don't believe I did hit him. I believe he hit me.
You just told me you hit him. Well, don't put your hand up. You weren't there. You just said you hit him.
Yes, I made a mistake.
No, you told it right. Okay, Mr. Flynn.
I don't know if you want to see these or not. These are a little bit more detailed.
How old are you, Robert?
I'm 16 years old.
Do you have a driver's license?
I have my temps.
Do you have a driver's license?
No, I have a snowmobile driver's license, though.
Can I see the photographs, please? All right, Mr. Flynn, you want to tell me your version of these events, please?
Yeah, what happened was I was out scraping the windows on our truck. We had a substantial snowfall, and I was out scraping the truck off. My wife was sitting in the passenger side, and we heard him screaming up and down the road a few times, and then he came into our park, and I heard him accelerating. And the thing is, you don't hear a snowmobile. It's like a motorcycle. You don't hear a motorcycle unless it's accelerating. When they're coasting through, that's what you hear, nothing, not snow. But anyways, I was cleaning off the windows on the passenger side. Next thing you know, bam, he hits the side of my truck and veered off, and he almost caught there's a post over there, but on the pictures you'll see it. There's no grassy area.
Are you telling me that the truck was not moving?
No, the truck was sitting right where it was. I was scraping.
Shh.
I was scraping the windows off. We're getting ready to go. If I was pulling out and I was at any type of an angle at all, he would have ran in the side of me. His skis would have stopped underneath my truck. He would have went right underneath my truck.
Where was this?
That is right behind the front left tire. It's like a step bumper that you step out of your driver's door.
Oh, I see. You called the defendant's mother to the scene.
Actually, I gave him my phone to call.
And she came?
After the second phone call. First phone call he made was like a bogus call. And then he handed me my phone back, said I can't get a hold of her. I said, that's not an option. Either your mother, your father, or the sheriff. And
is that right?
I got a hold of my mother's boyfriend.
Listen to me. Did you tell him I can't get a hold of her?
I could not at first, yes. I did tell him that, but it was not a bogus phone call. I talked to her boyfriend, which he said she was not there. And so I tried to call her cell phone, and it went to the voicemail. And then he said that he was calling the police then. I tried to call my mother again at my Chris's house, I think, and she answered there because she was at their house for a Packer party.
And your mother came over?
Yes, she did.
And when she came over, what happened?
She kind of yelled at him a little bit, said he wasn't supposed to have a sled out and he didn't need this kind of trouble, that wait till his father found out about it. And I told her, in fact, before we did anything, I had moved my truck out to protect the tracks from his snowmobile coming into the park. And I walked him and her back to the tracks, showing where he had no control over that unit. And I explained to her that I wouldn't call the cops, that whatever the damage is, give me $100 down or $150 down and make $25 a month payments. And she goes, thank you, thank you, thank you. Gave me a card, gave me everything. And the way I see now, where she has...
Just a second. When did you try to contact the defendant?
Actually, the accident happened on the 13th. On the 15th, I called her the first time and told her that the step bumper would be approximately $267. And I says, just give me the money for it, $100 or $150 down, and make the payments. And she says, no problem. Well, she called back like maybe 6 or 8 hours later and asked if one of her relatives or aunts, uncles, whatever, own a parts store, if they could get the part cheaper. And I says, yeah, that's fine. Get the part.
Who owns the parts store?
His father works.
Who owns the parts store?
His father works at one. That's all I said to him.
Fine.
I never said
Just a
anybody
second.
at one.
I didn't ask you anything yet. So, you asked if you could get the part cheaper. Would he mind getting it from his father's parts store? That's either a yes or a no.
Yes.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. His truck was damaged when 16-year-old Robert Westerlund crashed his snowmobile. Robert claims Michael pulled out in front of him.
So did you call your ex-husband and ask him to get the part?
I called him and told him the make and model of his truck and asked him to find out what the part would cost.
Did he ever get back to you with how much it would be?
No.
Do you know why?
No, I don't know why.
You see, this is not the story you gave me in your answer.
I haven't had
But clearly,
talk.
oh yeah, we're going to get the way. I'm sure that I'm going to get the truth. So far, whatever Mr. Flynn is telling me is the truth, because you acknowledge now that you called your ex-husband and said he was in this accident with the truck. Do me a favor, please find out how much it would cost to replace this part. That, to me, Miss Taylor, acknowledges the fact that your son was at fault.
I don't agree.
Well, I don't care what you agree with. That's why I'm sitting here and you're standing there. Because otherwise, there would have been no reason for you to call your ex-husband and say, listen, how much can we get this part for? Because I promised that I would pay for the part, and he wants $260. Put your hand down. He wants $267 for it, and I said I would see if I could get it cheaper.
I never promised.
Listen to me. Knock, knock. There would have been no reason for you to call your ex-husband to ask him to get the part cheaper if you believed that it was his fault and he was responsible for the damage on the snowmobile.
It saved us going to court and going through.
That's right. So you did say, I will take care of it. Had your son been in trouble with the police before?
Yes.
Yes, which is why you didn't want the sheriff called again.
I said to call the police. I did.
When did you say call the police?
At the time of the accident, when I came and saw the way the cars were sitting, it was obvious that his car was pulled out in front of Bobby.
So why didn't you call the police?
Bobby said, Mom, please, let's just take care of it. We'll pay the $150. And I said, we'll talk about it later. We exchanged phone
now
numbers.
we're getting closer to the truth. Closer, but not 100% there yet. So despite the fact that now you tell me that a visual viewing suggested it was his fault and not your son's, and the damage, according to you, to the snowmobile was over $2,000.
He pulled in front of Bobby and I saw it.
I'm speaking. You had the right to call the police and say, this was an accident. My son could have been hurt badly. You didn't do that. Your son said, Mom, let's just take care of it. That's what you said. What, Bobby?
The reason I wanted to take care of this without calling the police is because I was in trouble with the cops and everything, yeah, but the reason I agreed to pay for this damage is because he got out of the truck yelling and screaming at me, and I felt threatened and I didn't know.
Oh, Robert, get over. At this point, your mother is there.
No, she wasn't at that point.
No, at this point, your mother just said to me.
No, this is before she got there.
Listen, I'm not interested in what a 16-year-old says to him before your mother gets there.
I didn't say nothing.
When your mother was there, you said to her, according to your mother, let's just take care of it, Mom. I don't want to call the police.
Yes, I did say
Right,
to my
that's
mother.
all. So you got to take care of it. Can I have a bill, please?
I do have a tape recording here, too.
Of
Bobby saying, Mike, I'm sorry. I know I haven't lived up. That was after I sent him a letter saying, after 2 or 3 months went by.
Well, then according to what I read, his mother probably got fed up with him and he went to live with his father. He lives with his father now?
We have joint placement, split custody.
Did he go to live with his father?
No.
Your Honor, what had happened was I called her house, and she said, Bobby doesn't live here anymore, and she hung up on me.
That's not true.
So then I called her husband, ex-husband. Bobby answered the phone, and I told him, this is the way it's going to be. No more options. You make the payments here come Wednesday. And so what happened was Bobby says, I'll make a payment on Wednesday. After 3 weeks of him not making a payment, I sent her a letter, certified letter. I've got a copy of that. And I told her exactly what went on, how the damage occurred, how she walked through the tracks, the whole bit.
Listen to me. She told you not to call the police.
No, that's correct.
I told him not to. She did not.
This is not a free-for-all. I'm getting what happened here. You know, life's experience is revisited hundreds of thousands of times during the course of one's lifetime. This is not so unusual. You got there. You saw what you saw. You know, trouble with the police before. Your son said to you, Mom, let's just take care of the damage. You said, fine, send me the bill. He calls you and said, this is what it's going to be. You say to him, let me see if I can get the part cheaper. You call your, don't shake your head. No, that's exactly what you told me. You call your ex-husband's, you ask him to get the part cheaper, and then all of a sudden, nobody hears anything from you. Put your hand down. How many times have you been arrested at age 16?
I've been arrested twice.
If you have to think that long about how many times you've been arrested, it's too many times, Robert. Your son said to you, Mom, just take care of the damage and let's go. Because he said to me, I've been in trouble with the police. He's been arrested. I suggest to you, sir, that when you appear before a judge on your other matters, which are criminal in nature and not civil.
I've never had a problem with any other judges.
I want to tell you something. That's probably your problem. If you had trouble with the first one, maybe there wouldn't have been a second one. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $517.
20-year-old Anthony A.J. Hall is suing his former live-in girlfriend, 19-year-old Amber Parker, for rent and the return of his property. Amber says Anthony locked her out of the apartment.
Mr. Hall, the defendant was your girlfriend and a roommate of yours. Yeah. She moved into your house.
We got a house together.
Who was on the lease?
Me, her, Amber, and Aaron.
Who's Aaron?
My friend.
After a period of time, short period of time, she moved out. And it is your claim that when she moved out, she took with her some property that belonged to you. And in addition, she put a stop payment order on the last month's rent for February of 2006.
I believe it was January's rent.
Do you have the check?
Yeah.
In any event, Ms. Parker says she moved out. She took nothing that didn't belong to her when she moved out. She says that she stopped payment on the rent because you had changed the locks. And she is counterclaiming because she says you destroyed some of her clothes. Well, this is dated December 30th of 2005, so I assume that it was for January.
Yeah.
All right, when did you move in together?
September 30th of 05.
Okay. You had an argument at some point. When was that?
On Christmas.
What happened?
We were having a party, a Christmas party, and when I returned from doing my family stuff, she just walked out the house, and that was about it. And then she came back an hour later, said it was over.
Where did you go?
I went to my son's dad's house in Salem.
How old is your son?
1.
What property do you claim she took, and when did she take it?
I believe it was January 7th, and here's a list.
See the list, please.
She called, I was in Albany, me and Aaron were in Albany. She called saying that she was at the house, she couldn't get in the house and she asked if the locks had been changed. We said yes.
Why did you change the locks?
The landlord told us to because there was things starting to show up that were missing.
Just a second. When did you change the locks?
The 5th.
When were you notified that the rent was returned?
It was the 11th.
Well, so on January 5th, when you changed the locks, you in effect evicted her.
The landlord told us to.
Don't tell me what the landlord told you. That's hearsay.
Okay.
Landlord can't tell you to change the locks. I don't even believe you when you say that the landlord told you to change the locks. So she's entitled to her rent back. Now, did you take his CDs?
It was my book of CDs, and he put his CDs in the back, but I got it out of his room because that's where I found it.
Okay, so the CDs you have, what's motion picture?
When you turn it on, the water move, it's a light picture.
You have that?
Yeah, he gave it to me for Christmas.
Tell me the circumstances surrounding his giving it to you for Christmas.
He had 3 of them, and I found out that he had traded drugs for them anyways, and so I took the one that was going to be mine for Christmas.
Well, you can't do that. You have to return it to him. Disco ball. Listen to me. I'm not going through all this little stuff if you two people decided to play house with each other. I'm going over the main items that are here. VH1 Big 05 sweepstakes bag. What is that?
Oh, it was a drawing from my work that we had, and I took the PSP out of it because we were going to share the items.
Do you have it?
I sold that, the PSP.
You sold it. How much did you sell it for?
$200.
You can't do that.
She actually took the whole bag, and that was valued at $500.
No, I didn't.
Why did you take these things that didn't belong to you and sell them?
That's the only thing that I sold, and we were sharing all the stuff, and I took one item out of it.
Do you have any other property that you took out of the house that doesn't belong to you?
No, one item that he had on the list was a medical marijuana program, and I took that and changed the caregiver, which he is no longer, and that's one thing that he's suing me for.
A what? I didn't...
It's because I was on chemotherapy for a while, and so I got the medical marijuana program, and he was the caregiver, so I took that stuff when I left and changed my caregiver, and I don't even have the program anymore.
I also paid for the program, the plant, and
Half
lighting.
I don't
of that.
So what?
All right.
So what? You know, you play house, that's what happens. Counsel claims states that he destroyed some of your property. You want to tell me about that?
Yeah, he peed on some of my clothes, and they were moldy, so I had to throw them away.
That was her cat that she locked in the laundry room.
And my cat wasn't there anymore.
Don't speak.
For probably 3, 4, 5 days.
You didn't do that.
No.
You have no proof that he did that, correct?
No.
Okay. You have to return the items that you took that weren't yours, because that's called stealing. You have to return $500 to him for property of his that you sold, because that's also called stealing. You, sir, have to know if you want to be free of a roommate, to get a small apartment and live by yourself. But once you sign on a lease with somebody, they have certain rights. You cannot lock them out. You got it?
Mm.
Where are you living now?
I'm living in Salem with my son's dad.
You have a child who's a year old. You have a responsibility. You know what your responsibility is?
And take care of him.
To maintain a stable home for him. That's your job. Nothing else. Clear?
Yep.
Good. That's all. Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step 148 on the calendar in the matter of Kennedy versus Esther Pellin. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated, ma'am. Have a seat.
Ms. Kennedy, according to your complaint, you and the defendant were dating.
Yes.
And you claim that he owes you some money for a cruise that you took together and also for credit card charges that he made on your credit card.
Yes.
Mr. Esther Pellin says that you were just friends, that the cruise was your treat, and that it was very nice of you as a friend to allow him to charge things on your credit card, but there was never an agreement for him to pay you back. Is that right?
Yes, miss.
How old are you?
40 years old.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a race car official and a mechanic.
Are you married?
And no longer.
You have children?
One.
Who does that child live with?
Her mother.
And who do you live with?
My father.
How long have you lived with your father?
6 months.
Do you pay him rent?
Yes.
How much rent do you pay him?
Not enough. About $100.
When did you meet Miss Kennedy?
When we were about 15 years old.
And did there come a time when you and Miss Kennedy started to have a relationship that was more than just friendly?
When we were 16.
More recently, sir, so that we can come into this millennium. You went on a cruise together.
Yes, we did.
And when was that cruise?
Early this year, January or February, I believe.
Had you been going out with us socially prior to that?
She had come to California from Arizona occasionally, and when she did, we would go out to dinner.
Just dinner?
Dinner and a movie.
Nothing more intimate than that?
No, ma'am.
When you went on the cruise, did you have one stateroom or two?
We had one.
Did you have one bed or two?
We had one.
And did you sleep on the floor or in the bed?
On the bed.
And what about Miss Kennedy?
On the bed.
How long was the cruise?
4 days.
Tell me the circumstances surrounding you going on the cruise.
We had been talking one time she came to California out to dinner. She was talking about vacations, that she had been wanting to take a vacation since she had been recently divorced. The next thing I had found out about the cruise was when she emailed me that she had booked a cruise, and she picked the dates around my racing schedule when I had an off weekend. So she had already planned it, booked it, and sent me the information.
No. In December, when I picked Michael up from being in jail for 30 days, we had discussed...
What was he in jail for?
Because he failed to finish his anger management classes from a domestic violence issue on his wife.
That should have been your first clue.
I know. I know.
Go ahead.
So when he got out of jail, we went to the motel, and we discussed going on vacation. And I said, okay, I'll do some research on it. And when I met him again 2 weeks later when I went to California, I brought him all the information, and he agreed to pay half of the cruise. We booked the cruise for January 17th.
When was he supposed to pay for it?
After racing season started, which was the end of January.
And he never paid for it?
Correct.
When did you make him a card holder on your credit card?
After March, when we both told each other that we loved each other.
March?
Yes.
Some 2 months after he failed to pay you for the cruise.
I had not asked him for the cruise money yet.
You just told me he was supposed to pay you for it when racing season started, which was a month later, and he didn't pay you.
Correct.
And if he didn't pay you, you should have had a clue that this wasn't somebody that you wanted to extend any further credit to.
Yes, ma'am.
So now I'm not interested in the cruise anymore.
Okay.
Now I'm interested in the credit card.
Okay. After Michael and I told each other that we loved each other on March 8th, he had been kicked out of his grandmother's house in February.
Why was he kicked out in February?
That I don't know the specifics. All I know is that she was very upset with him. It was some issue in the kitchen, that she had just cleaned the kitchen, and he was not wanting to clean it up and got all over her, and it was not a pretty sight. So she told him he
Should
had
have
to...
finished that anger management course.
Correct. So then in March, he started living at a motel, And he told me that for racing he would start traveling. So we agreed to put him as an authorized user on my American Express card. He would only use it for necessary items such as gas and lodging. And within a 1-month period, he had gone to Shoe City numerous times, motherhood, maternity, and I sure as heck wasn't pregnant, Victoria's Secret. So he was obviously romancing another woman.
So what happened when you got the first bill?
When I found out, I went online and checked the amount that was being charged so far. And I called Michael on April 9th, and I asked him what happened. He told me that someone had broken into his motel room and stolen the numbers because he still had the card. So like a fool, I believed him. And I had American Express cancel out that first card, send him a second card. Same thing happened. Room was miraculously broken again, and more charges started happening. So by the time the third card got to him, American Express had suspended the account, and I wasn't even allowed to use it because the charges were up to $11,000. Michael told me, just dispute all the charges. And I told him, I can't dispute the charges if they're legitimate charges.
Well, she had told me that she was going to give me a card to help me on the road, and that's what I had used it for. And yes, I had charged it, and yes, I did go to Victoria's Secrets because by that time I had met somebody else who I did like, and was planning to have a future with. I had told her that the whole time that we were, friends, and that we were always just friends.
Listen to me.
Yes, ma'am.
Let's get back to the credit card, sir. So what you're telling me is that when she questioned you about these charges, you told her that somebody had used the card in an unauthorized fashion initially.
No, ma'am. What I said is that she
Look
told
at me.
Yes, she told me.
No, here.
I am here. She told me that there's numerous charges on him, and she says, "Well, how could there be that many charges?" I said, "I have no idea. Maybe the only way is if somebody got the numbers from my card. That'd be the only other way that could happen."
You're a dishonest man.
I don't believe so, ma'am.
You are a thoroughly and totally dishonest man. Because if you had said to Miss Kennedy the first time around, you got me. I charged things because I originally said I was just going to charge things on the road, which is what you told me.
Eventually.
I'm speaking.
Yes, ma'am.
You said I'm going to charge things on the road, motel, meals, that sort of thing. And then you chose, because you met somebody else, to charge things on the credit card that she questioned. And you knew that if you said to her, I met somebody else, and yes, I did charge some things for that other person, she would have canceled the card. You chose not to do that. And after you got the second card, you charged things for your new girlfriend. So when I say to you that you are a dishonest person, I know from whence I speak. You are a dishonest and dishonorable person.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
He's a hustler.
Her ex-boyfriend, Michael Estepellen, made unauthorized charges on her credit card. Sharon claims Michael lied about the card getting stolen.
What were the costs that he put on your credit card?
The charges that I did not dispute in a 30-day period was $3,675.84.
Can I see those, please?
The highlight ones on the copy are the ones that we did not dispute. And I also have a copy...
You did not dispute them because he made them.
Correct. I have a copy of the cell phone bill that we also went on the family plan with.
Shh, I don't care about the cell phone. He's a hustler.
Yes.
Judge him for the plaintiff for the amount of $3,600. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
She seems to think I'm a dishonest hustler. That's fine. That's her opinion.
Michael was in jail again in May, and I called his cell phone, and his girlfriend answered.
She finally got it through her head that we were going to be nothing but just friends.
I was totally shocked. I could not believe how much of a charmer he was and how good a liar he really was.
Now she's just she's a scorned woman who didn't get away.
The money is...
Step forward, please.
Artist Mariana Diaz is suing former client, restaurant manager Robert Altunian, for the cost of a painted mural. Mariana says Robert never paid for her work.
Ms. Diaz, you claim that the defendant owes you for a mural that you painted for his restaurant. And Mr. Altunia says that he didn't like the result, so he's not paying for it.
Right.
When did you hire Ms. Diaz?
Exact date, I don't really remember.
Month.
Because maybe November or October.
When did he hire you?
On November 5th.
And what was your agreement with her, Mr. Altunia?
Actually, I was trying to find a mural person.
Listen to me.
I
had a very...
$3,000.
Okay, you were going to pay her $3,000
Yes,
for the
ma'am.
mural. And how long did she work on the mural?
Almost 6 weeks.
And you didn't like the result?
Yes.
Do you have a photograph of the mural that you completed?
Yes.
I'd like to see it, please. How did you find her, by the way, Mr. Altunia?
I put the words around that I need a mural, and she knew one of my secretaries. It was a friend of hers or something, and when I asked her, she said, I'll do it.
And you agreed on a $3,000. Can I see what you've put in there in place of this, sir?
Yes, ma'am. I actually run it. I have a couple of samples that...
I don't want to see a sample.
No.
I want to see what you did over her work.
Here. And the top one, too. And the back. That's it.
This is what is over the mural that she
That's,
painted,
yes.
you sure?
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
I'm sure.
Oh, I see what you did. You used part of her mural in the center, which is what you showed me. You used this part, and you had someone else paint pictures of women, dancers, around it.
Yes, ma'am, it's true.
Okay, good. Well, it's certainly, I will tell you, Miss Diaz, have you seen it? I'm going to show it to you. It certainly is lovely what he did. He added to your piece. Just show that to Miss Diaz. Okay.
I know the artist that did this. He's awesome guy.
Yes,
awesome.
he's wonderful. He used your center.
Right.
And then he painted beautiful women dancers around the back, and he is awesome.
It is awesome.
He is awesome. Let me
Yes.
have it back.
I met him while I was working on this because
there's no question about it.
Yeah.
That as far as artists go, Miss Diaz,
he's amazing.
He's terrific. But Mr. Altunia, you see, this is your problem, sir.
Okay.
How long have you been in the restaurant business?
32 years.
Let's say Officer Byrd and I decide to take our families to your restaurant.
Sure.
We come together. How many are in your family?
6.
All together. You know,
Altogether,
children.
6, yeah.
My basic family is 22. Children, their spouses, and grandchildren.
Sure.
So between the two of us now, we're 28 people. And we come to your restaurant. What kind of food do you serve, sir?
I have 8 kind of different restaurants that I represent.
This one?
I do not. This one is French restaurant. It's a cabaret, madame.
Good. So we come to your cabaret, and we eat, and we drink, and at the end of the meal, I say to him, you know what? I didn't like the food. I had better French food across the street.
All right.
So, Mr. Altunia, we're not paying the bill because we didn't like your food. We ate it. We used it. But it was better food across the street. Would your first phone call be to the police and say, these people are trying to scam me out of a $5,000 bill?
No,
they came, they ate my food, they drink my wine, and when I present them with a bill, they say, you know, we had better French food. What?
Before I forget, can I give you the answer?
Sure.
I would invite you again for free next meal.
Well, the next time, sir, that she paints a mural for you, maybe she'll do it for free. This time, you got to pay for it.
My personal knowledge is...
What?
good. Your Honor, that's good.
Sir, I wouldn't use her mural. Listen to me.
I did not use her mural.
Just a second. You did.
No, ma'am.
You used her mural because
No,
I'm
ma'am.
looking at the...
Can I- All right.
I'm looking at the work that
All
your
right.
artist did, and your artist used right in the center a little piece of her work. Whether you chose to use her work or not, that's not what's relevant, sir. If you made Miss Diaz, don't bother me. I think you ought to find a different line of work, by the way. But what I'm telling you is, she spent 6 weeks there. The fact that she is a person of marginal talent is not her fault. She really wanted to do a good job. This is the best job she could do. She didn't necessarily try to hurt you. And all during this, because I read the papers, you, instead of looking at it and saying, listen, my 6-year-old grandchild could do this job.
I did the same thing, Your Honor.
Oh, just a second.
Okay, I'm
Instead of doing that, you continued to give us supplies because she says, I could do better, I could do better. And I would have said, listen, let's stop right here. I see after 2 weeks this is not working out. I'm going to give you $1,000. I'm going to hire somebody else. But you, Mr. Altunia, said, fine. Here's the money. Go continue to work. Not the right thing to do, sir.
Can
You
I-
made a mistake.
Can I answer again, Your Honor?
Sure.
All right. When somebody starts, you know, she's a nice girl. When somebody starts, and a friend of my secretary too, she was very nice and she's very kind. Believe me, she did her best. I seen her go from books to bookstores. I seen her bringing so many pictures. I seen her sleep there sometime. I was wrong by hiring for such cheap price and expecting the most.
Mr. Altunia,
Yeah,
that's where you're mistaken.
that's right. I think
That's
she
your
was expensive.
mistake. You've been in business 33 years. You
that's
get
right.
what you
That's
pay
very true,
for.
Your Honor.
And the artist who ultimately did this, clearly, if they
Your Honor,
charge
please
you...
do me a favor. I got to tell you this. I want to show it to you
I want to
what
also
she did.
express something.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. You go.
First of all, I mean, I'm not going to discuss art, and here is just my time that I put into that thing.
Does it sound as if you're not going to win this case?
No, and also, I mean, just defending a little bit my art. This thing we agreed before I started that I was going to do over the stage, because that was the stage.
Your Honor, excuse me.
And I did it in God leave. So
Miss
I don't.
Diaz, listen
right.
to me, sweetheart.
Right.
He's got to pay you the $3,000. Put it down. He's got to pay you the $3,000 because that was your
Your Honor,
agreement.
one more second, please.
Yes.
I told her to put a Moulin Rouge.
Yeah,
Moulin Rouge is a very
it's a
famous
windmill.
restaurant. Moulin Rouge is a beautiful place in Paris. I met better over here. I had a lot of money available to give anything she wanted. I have $1 million location.
Listen to me.
I have now picture. I told her to make one Moulin, the windmill. That's how she finished it. And I had to work in the top of Moulin Rouge.
No.
Please look at it.
I did the Moulin
Look what
since
she
the
did.
beginning. It was
Yeah, I wanted the Moulin.
amazing. It's amazing. And
You're going to win
okay.
anyway. Please don't. You won already. Why are you fighting?
Mr. Raltunia, what I'm telling you is you're a businessman. You've been a businessman for 33 years, according to you, in the restaurant business. You made an agreement with her. Your agreement was she's going to paint, do the best job she could for $3,000.
Right.
The fact that you thought you were getting something for nothing,
That's right.
that's your problem. See,
I
then
guess
you had
it
to
was.
hire somebody to come in and finish the job. And I want to tell you something. The person that you hired is a person that has a tremendous amount of talent. But that's your problem.
It's
She
true.
worked for 6 weeks. You got to pay a judge for the plaintiff.
Your
And
Honor.
that's a $3,000.
Hold on, wait,
Thank
don't
you.
give nothing.
Goodbye.
Parties are
Bye.
excused.
Good
You may
luck.
step out.
Thank you.
On the matter of Wade versus Ortiz Hoover. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated.
Miss Wade, I gather from your complaint that this young man was your boyfriend and then your fiancé. Is that right?
Correct.
How long were you engaged?
About 1 year and 4 months. I'm sorry, 4 months. We were engaged. We were in a relationship for 1 year and 4 months.
When did you become engaged?
March 31st.
And when did it terminate?
August 14th.
According to your complaint, prior to the termination of your relationship, you claim that the defendant and his mother asked you to pay for certain medical and dental bills for Mr. Ortiz, and you paid for the dental work that Mr. Ortiz had done with the expectation that you were going to get paid. You claim that his mother did send $150 a month towards this extensive dental work that he had, but as soon as the engagement was over, so were the payments. In addition, you claim that Mr. Ortiz had some chiropractic work done at your chiropractor that you believe he was to pay back. Mr. Ortiz says none of these things are true. You chose to pay for him to have dental work. Let me see. Smile. Very nice. Some of the dental work was cosmetic?
It was more reconstructive. They tore out old pieces. I had root canal done as well.
On your front teeth?
No.
Back teeth?
Yeah, back teeth. Nothing visible.
Okay. Mr. Ortiz says that in addition to this stuff being gifts, these bills being gifts by you because you were living together and planning a life together, that you refused to return the engagement ring, which I assume you have right over there. You say you're not returning the ring. It was a gift to you. Can I see the ring? I always like to look at rings. Very lovely. So we'll decide where it goes. Who terminated the relationship?
Aaron did.
Why, Mr. Ortiz?
I felt that I wasn't being treated respectfully. During parts in our relationship, she did verbally abuse me, attack me in different ways, eventually confronting me physically. She said that she apologized over and
When
over.
you say she confronted you physically, she hit you?
She pushed me, and she also smacked my hat off, basically in the middle of an argument because I didn't do the dishes.
Smacked your what?
My hat off that I was wearing at the time. I apologize.
Because you didn't do the dishes.
Yeah, that competition led up until the big argument. I continued to tell her to get out of my face or get out of my way. Eventually, I went to my room, packed up all my belongings, threatened her, and said, "This is it," and
I'm leaving.
Yeah, and she begged me not to do so. She said that she would seek some sort of help. She said that she would talk to somebody because of it. She also sought help from my mother numerous times.
So you decided this is not something that you wanted to make a lifelong
Right, I didn't want
tradition
it for my kids.
of.
Exactly.
That sounds reasonable, Miss Wade. Good idea.
That would sound reasonable if that was the truth, but it's not.
So let me hear you.
Your Honor, I was madly in love with Aaron, and I had been, since the beginning of our relationship, taking him to a dental clinic where his mother was paying for...
Are you telling me why you broke up?
No, well, I can tell you why.
Well, that's where we're at
Okay.
right now.
I'm sorry.
You have your agenda, I have mine.
I never hit him.
Did you have an argument?
Of course.
Did you have an argument over the dishes?
I'm sure we probably did.
Is that the day he moved out? I want you
No.
to tell me about the day he moved out.
No, he didn't move out. I moved out.
You left?
I moved out.
Just a minute. You left?
After he told me he didn't want to be with me anymore, yeah.
He gets the ring back.
He shouldn't get the ring back.
He gets the ring back. I'm going to tell you why he gets the ring back. Because an engagement ring is a gift given, in my judgment, contemplation of a marriage taking place. But if the marriage never takes place, the reason for this gift becomes a nullity. Do you understand?
I understand.
Okay, good. So now you can give him back his ring. Thank you. You wouldn't want it anyway. Your next fiancé wouldn't like you to have it in your jewelry box. So the only thing that you do with it is sell it. Now I want you to tell me about the dental bill.
When I started my relationship with Aaron, he was going to a dentist. We had been taking him week after week, and he was still in pain. So by referral, we found a new one. I took him for his consultation.
You were living together?
We were living together, yes.
When you say you took him?
I drove him. He had no transportation. He had no job. He had no car.
You got the same age?
So he's 29. I'm 26.
Okay, go ahead.
I drove him to his consultation. He went in, spoke with the dentist, and asked me to come into the room where we all sat down. And the consultant talked to us about what work he needed to be done. From there, we knew that both of us couldn't afford to do this. I was supporting him. He was in school. So we went to his mom, and she said that she could afford to make $150 a month payments. She couldn't afford to make the payments directly to the dentist because she was doing construction on her house. So she couldn't get the credit for it. Aaron had bad credit, so the only other choice was me, and I had good credit. So we decided to open up a credit card under my name, and Elaine made the payments for 10 months.
Did she give you $150 a month?
Yes.
And what did you do with the check?
I wrote a check to the credit card company and sent it off.
No, that's not what you did. Don't play with me, Miss Wade. That's not what you did. What you did was deposit the check into your checking account and wrote your check to the credit card company. You didn't endorse her check to the credit card company. You put the check into your personal account from which you paid all your bills, right?
Correct.
And then you paid the dentist.
Correct. And I kept a log of it, every check. I have every check that she wrote me. I have all of the bills from the dentist. I was very careful about keeping track of how much they paid, when they paid, and how much was still due.
I'd like to see it. What are you doing now, Mr. Ortiz?
I'm a full-time student. I've just sought part-time seasonal work for Tiffany & Company.
You're a full-time student at what? You're 29 years old.
I go to the Art Institute of California, San Diego. I study advertising.
Who do you live with?
I live on my own. I support myself.
From what?
I took out student loans, grand amounts, which were co-signed, thankfully, by my parents, because they convinced me that I was in need of that education, and I also wanted to seek it and also obtain a bachelor's degree by the time I was 30. It's always been a good goal of mine.
You just prepared this, is that right?
I kept a log as we were together.
No. I don't believe you.
Bill, all of the numbers are there.
I don't believe you.
All of the numbers are
I
there.
believe that you
Okay.
did this
Right.
to come to court, so we don't take those things.
I did not do it to come to court.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I'll give her the ring. You want
His mother, Elaine Hoover, owe for medical and dental bills. Aaron and his mother are countersuing for the return of the engagement ring.
Where is the one credit card that you took out to pay these dental bills?
It's a different credit card, and I kept the balance on that.
Listen to me. You said that you took out a credit card, opened a credit card in order to pay the dentist. Let's say the dentist was $2,900. You would have an opening balance of $2,900, and then you would have each month $150 being paid because that's what you did. You said you wrote out a check for $150. So what are you giving me this for?
That shows the amount that I gave the credit card to the dentist, and she ran it.
Listen to me. There are a whole bunch of bills on this thing.
There are.
Having nothing to do with the dentist.
Correct.
Right.
But I'm not suing him for those. I'm just
You understand what you said to me, Miss Wade? What you said was you opened a credit card for the purpose of paying the dental bill. And each month you paid off $150 a month, which is what she gave you. And that's a lot of baloney because you had a credit card. You used this credit card for things like Chin Seafood Restaurant, Party City, Staples, Lowe's, Shell's Oil, Ralph's, Henry's, TJ Maxx, Ralph's, Ultramar, Albertsons. So you didn't have one credit card that you used, so let's change the testimony. The testimony is not one credit card for the dentist. You used your existing credit card and paid the dentist from your existing credit card. Is that right? Now, Show me where each month on your credit card you made a payment of $150 a month.
I made more than that, Your Honor.
Well, then that's your problem. You didn't keep neat records. Return this to her, Bird, please.
Your Honor.
I believe that she paid you $150 a month. She says she paid you $150 a month to help cover her son's expenses. That's not where the case is at, Miss Wade. That's your problem. Your problem is with Mr. Ortiz. You got the teeth?
Yes, Your Honor.
You pay the bill.
When she promised to do so.
You pay. You got the teeth?
Yes, Your Honor.
You pay the bill. How much was the ring?
The ring was approximately $1,100.
I'll give her the ring. You want me to deduct it from what you owe her? Good. Your mother says yes. Give her the ring.
I have something.
Give her the ring.
I have something to say.
Give her the ring. No, you don't.
Okay, I'll wait.
You could wait until freezes over.
Okay.
How much does he still owe you for the dentist? He's 29 years old. His mother can sit down.
$3,606.
Want to see the bill for the ring? Well, he paid $1,000 for the ring. You can probably sell it for $600.
I would rather give him the ring back than have to pay him for it. I just don't think that's right.
Well, let me explain something to you, my dear. He has very little money because he's a full-time student. He's what you picked. Do you understand? And while his mother may have said, I'll pay you some money, he was living with you, contributing nothing. And there's something to his mother's statement, which I read, that suggests to me, what do you want?
Sorry, that's not true, Your Honor. I did contribute as often as possible. Student loans that were taken out and co-signed by my parents, I strictly signed over to her. Every single penny that I made.
Listen to me. It's good, but you didn't make many pennies. Your problem is you didn't make many pennies and you didn't have enough pennies to pay for your own dental work, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If she were going to have Mr. Ortiz the benefit of your nice, wonderful smile for the rest of her life, we wouldn't be sitting here today. But a 29-year-old man doesn't allow somebody else to pay to have their teeth fixed. Do you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
So you have to pay for it. And it's very nice to live on your own. How far do you live from your parents?
5 miles.
Good. Move back home. Save a whole bunch of money. And whatever your student loans are or what you earn from your part-time job, take care of by taking care of your responsibilities. Very nice to live alone and be a grown-up when you're 29. But if you want to be a grown-up when you're 29 years old, you don't let somebody else pay for your dental bills. Now, as far as the chiropractor is concerned, because you went to your chiropractor and found he had gone to the chiropractor, so you paid his bill.
We went to the chiropractor at the same time I had taken him to his appointment, and the chiropractor asked for payment. At that time, he had been numerous times. It was totaled of $210. Aaron said that when he got money from school the following semester, he would reimburse me.
Is that what he said to you right then and there in the chiropractor's
That's what he said right then and
office?
there at the office.
I don't believe you. How's that?
It's the truth.
Don't believe you.
It's the truth.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't. Because that's not the way people who sleep together talk to each other. That's not the way people who are intimate with each other talk to each other. As soon as I get my money from my student loan next semester, I'm going to reimburse you for it. Come over here.
If he had a job, he would have
You
paid for
picked
it.
him.
Unfortunately,
you picked him.
yes.
You picked him. Well, right now, sell the ring. You still owe $3,000. That's for your teeth. Do you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
Good. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $3,000. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
She wants money? That's all she
wants. Step forward.
20-year-old Karina Villa is suing her former friend, 18-year-old Sarah Welcome, for crashing her car during a night of drinking. Sarah says Karina handed her the keys.
Ms. B, according to what I read, you and the defendant and maybe some of these other young ladies went to a party or something, had a little too much to drink. You gave the defendant the keys to your car, asked her to drive home because you had had too much to drink. She did and wrecked your car.
Yes.
You want her to pay for the car.
Not pay for the car, just the loss of my job and the deductible.
Why the loss of your job?
The night that this happened, when I gave her the keys to my car, she explained to me that she did not have nothing to drink. And if this would have not happened, I would have had my job, I would have had my car, I would be working every day. And she just wrecked my car and didn't talk to me anymore, and that was it.
So what did you do?
What did I do? Well, the first few months, it was calling her.
Where do you live?
Where do I live?
Is there an echo in here? Where do you live?
Lamont, California.
Is that rural area?
It's the country, you would say.
Who do you live with?
My mother.
Does your mother have a car?
Yes.
What does she do for a living?
She works for the government. She works for BLM.
Did you look for a job near where your mother works?
There's nothing out there where she works. She works probably like 20 miles away from where I live.
So you want her to pay you for the 2 months that you were out of work because she wrecked your car?
Well, not really that. Deductible would be nice, and
All right, here we go. So we've now eliminated a good part of your lawsuit, which was ridiculous anyway. Let's get to the deductible. First, why did you drink so much that you couldn't drive?
It wasn't, I had like 2 beers, probably. And I didn't want to drive my car drinking and driving.
And you? How many beers did you have?
Probably about 3. And she knew I had been drinking.
Don't tell me what she knew.
Okay.
What did you say when she gave you the keys to the car?
I was standing at the back side of her car. We were starting to leave. She started getting in the driver's side of her car, said she couldn't drive, asked if I would drive because she had already previously been in trouble for drinking and driving, didn't want to drive her car. So I said, you know, I'll drive. She, you know, we had been drinking together because earlier that night she drove her car to my friend's house, Brittany, where I had been at.
Now, once she handed you the keys, if you had been drinking, why did you take them?
It was an honest mistake to take the keys in the first place. But I did.
How could it be an honest mistake? If you had had 3 beers.
Yeah, I shouldn't have taken the keys.
They were getting to a certain amount of responsibility.
Yes, I
should not have taken the keys. Now, do you think that you are in any way responsible for Miss Villa's out-of-pocket expenses?
In part, yes.
Good. How much did you offer her?
Our insurance company, and I have the paperwork that says how many times our insurance company tried to get a hold of her. They refused to talk to him. They said they paid for it, paid for the damage to her car. She refused to talk to my insurance company. So she had...
Did you talk to your insurance company?
Yes.
Shh. Did you tell your insurance company that you had been drinking and
Yes.
driving? Let me see. And let me see the claim letter that you put into your insurance company. Was anybody else in the car with you, by the way?
No.
Nobody was in the car with you when you had this accident?
No, not besides her, no.
She was in the car?
Yes, her.
And I do have pictures.
You got paid $2,088.74 so far?
No, just the $1,520 that was paid for the salvage.
Because the car wasn't fixed?
No.
So where's your $500 deductible?
It was taken out because...
Let me see. Okay, I'm back with you.
What, do I think I owe her for the entire thing out of that? The deductible, if anything? Because the loss of her job is not my fault. She already had a previous
Forget the loss
driving.
of her job. I already told you. I'm not interested in the loss of her job. Abraham Lincoln walked 5 miles each way to school. She wants to get a job, she can get a job.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the deductible.
I would think that since I was in part responsible for driving, that I would owe her the deductible.
Great. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $500.
All these are excused. You may step out.
He couldn't drive anymore, asked me to drive.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Judge. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Ma'am, have a seat, please.
Miss Warren, the defendant and you were involved in some sort of a relationship. You had a car accident at some point. When was that?
I had a car accident in April of 2005.
And you worked out an arrangement with Mr. Dempsey, who had lost his driver's license because of something. Why?
DUI.
Shh. I'm not looking at you. Because of why?
I did receive a DUI.
So your license was suspended?
Yes. The court never filed on it, but...
Oh, listen to me. I'm moving on.
Yes.
So you didn't have a driver's license. So you had a car accident, you had no car, he had an SUV and no driver's license. So the two of you worked out an arrangement.
Well, Your Honor, I always had a car. My grandparents always had a car for me.
I'm not interested in that. You could have had your grandparents' car. You didn't drive your grandparents' car. You drove his SUV. And you drove his SUV for how long?
About 7 months.
And while you had his SUV, you put in certain improvements in the car.
Correct.
Certain things that every car absolutely positively needs. Why don't you tell me what you put in the car?
Something like a suspension. There was things called springs. I don't even know what these things were for, just to make the car look better, lift it. Everything was to lift the Expedition.
So you put in something to lift it up higher, to make it look bigger.
It's flashy, correct.
Flashy. And what else did you do to the car while you had it in your possession?
There's an exhaust that he wanted to put on it.
That made it louder?
Correct. There was already one on there already, but he...
What else did you do to the car?
That's about it. There was like 3 things put on there to make it higher, and the exhaust and everything like that.
And in what month did you put on these flashy things?
September.
And how long did you drive it afterwards?
About a month afterwards. He got his license back in September, the end of September, and we broke up in October.
And then at some point you also bought him a stereo for a new car that he bought.
I didn't buy that for him. That was already mine.
That was
yours. That was in my previous Honda that came from my accident. I had to take it out of everything.
And you gave it to him?
I did not give it to him. I loaned it to him because he had to have a Blazer. So the time we were dating, he had 2 vehicles.
And when did you loan it to him?
About the beginning of September when he bought this Blazer.
You broke up and he took the car back and you won all the money that you spent on the car?
Well, in the beginning it was a loan.
That's what the lawsuit is
correct.
How much money did you pay him during the time, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, during the 7 months that you had the car? How much did you pay him for the use of the car?
I didn't pay anything to him for the use of the car. The insurance on the car, I was making payments on the insurance.
How much did you pay on the insurance?
The insurance was...
Don't tell me what it was. That's not what I asked you. I know what it was. I asked you how much did you pay for it. Your agreement was, according to him, that you were going to pay the insurance every month on the car. He says sometimes you paid it and sometimes you didn't. So my question to you is, how much did you pay for the insurance?
About $200 every month.
Show me.
I just have the page right here saying that I had insurance on it. The declaration page, I don't have. Everything else went to my house, the payment, the stub, everything like that. I made all the payments. Nothing went to his house.
Did she make all the payments on the insurance?
No, ma'am.
How many insurance payments did she make?
She made probably 4 insurance payments on the vehicle.
That's not true.
She paid them directly to the company or to you?
To the company.
You pay them to the company, she paid them by check.
Correct. Check or cash. Half the time it was check, half the time it was cash.
How do you pay cash to an insurance company?
You pay the lady right there, she puts it in the computer.
Well, why would you pay half in cash and half by check so that you don't have a record?
I had enough cash to pay it on me at that time, so I'd pay it right then and there.
You think I believe that?
You should.
I don't. I don't. Because normal people, you are a normal person, aren't you?
Correct.
When you go in and you want to pay a bill and you have cash available, you put the cash in the bank and you draw a check for the entire amount. That way you have proof that you paid it. Otherwise, you get a receipt that you paid it. You have any of those receipts?
I do not have those receipts with me.
Of course not. So she souped up your SUV, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
She wants you to pay for it. In 30 seconds or less, tell me why you should not pay for it.
Because everything was a gift until I broke up with her, and now everything's a loan, and that's why we're here.
Well, tell me about the time that she put in these things that lifted up your SUV.
She was driving the vehicle.
Look at me.
She kept wanting to get the windows tinted, get things done to it.
Why would I care about that stuff?
Listen to me. Don't speak. I let you speak. I took your testimony. Now I'm talking to him.
She's a very vain girl.
Listen to me. I don't care. Tell me the conversations that you had with regard to tinting the windows, raising the SUV, putting in a new exhaust that makes it louder so that all your neighbors love you.
She wanted to do it. I said, okay, no problem. That's basically the end of it.
And you were a couple at that time.
We were.
And after you got your license back, according to your answer, Mr. Dempsey, she was still driving the car.
She was.
The SUV. And you bought another car.
I did, so she could continue driving. She had wrecked hers, and she needed that one.
Well, you acknowledge that, Miss Warren, that he bought a second car.
I did.
And he was driving the second car, and you continued to drive the SUV. Is that right?
That's correct. I didn't need to drive the SUV. That's what I'm saying. I didn't need to drive it.
But you did. Who do you live with?
My grandparents.
You pay rent?
No. I'm going to school.
Where'd you get the money for all this stuff?
That's what I'm saying. I had to put it on my credit card. That's why I'm asking for it back, so I can...
Credit cards have to be paid, Miss Warren. What kind of
That's
school
what I'm
are
saying.
you going? What kind of school are you going to?
I'm going to the nursing school, the LVN program.
Do you work besides?
Yes, I do.
Where?
Red Lobster, 6 days a week.
Good. And you drove this SUV to get to and from work?
Correct.
The first time you got a bill, did you give him the bill?
No, I did not.
The second month that you got the bill, did you give him the bill?
No, he gave me cash, though. And I have proof of cash that he gave me, because it was not a gift. It was put on my credit card, and it was agreement he would pay it back.
I don't believe that, Miss Warren, at all.
Well, there's statements right here that he gave me $160 cash and then $400 cash.
Did you give it cash?
No.
Yes, he did.
At no time. I paid for several things, almost everything during the relationship. I paid for gas every day. I never gave her any cash in repayment of a loan.
I don't think you did either.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
The relationship is...
Her ex-boyfriend, Jeremy Dempsey, owes for money she spent to fix up his SUV. Jeremy says the improvements were Desiree's idea.
Now, I believe that you thought that you were going to be able to maintain this relationship and that you were going to drive the SUV. He bought a second car to drive. When he got his license back, leaving you with that car, the fact that the relationship is over does not convert these things that you put on because you like to drive a car like that into, I'm speaking, into a loan that he has to repay. Aside from the fact that once you drove a car, let's say you drove it, and it was an SUV, and let's say you'd have to spend $200-300 a month in order to rent a car. You didn't have to do that. So consider it the cost of a rental. The relationship is over. It's probably a very good thing, especially for you. The case is dismissed. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Nancy Schmidt and her nephew, 16-year-old Neelan Zarlengo, are suing Vernon and Tammy Edwards for Neelan's medical bills. Nancy claims Tammy's son, 13-year-old Austin, shattered the boy's eye socket during a game of wall ball.
Miss Schmidt, is that right?
Yes.
This is your nephew.
Correct.
What's your first name?
Neeland.
What kind of sports do you play, Neeland?
I used to play soccer.
Well, that's what this case is about. Stand up next to your parents. According to you, this young man injured you during a soccer game. It wasn't really during a soccer game. It was after, according to you, he had been expelled from the game.
No, wall ball.
Wall ball?
Yeah.
I don't know what wall ball is.
It's a game where you have a rubber ball and you throw it against the wall. If they catch it, they throw it again. But if they catch it and they drop it, then they have to run to the wall, and you have to throw the ball at the wall to get them out.
Where were you playing?
At my friend Arthur's house.
How many play this game?
We had about 5 playing.
And unfortunately, you were pretty seriously injured. You had a shattered eye socket.
Yes.
As a result of being hit in the face. What's your name?
Austin.
With Austin's sneaker.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Neeland, tell me how that happened.
I got him out. I hit the wall 3 times, and he'd gotten out.
So he was eliminated at that point?
Yes.
And I assume that the last man standing wins the game. Is that what happens?
Yes.
So you don't play teams, you play against each other?
Yeah.
He was out?
Mm-hmm. And next thing I knew, I turned around and I got hit in the face with a shoe.
A flying tennis shoe, though? Wasn't attached to his body?
No.
What happened after you got hit in the face with the shoe?
I ran inside in excruciating pain.
Did you take him to the hospital?
Yeah.
Do you have medical records?
Yes.
I'd like to see them.
That's the emergency room.
Did you have surgery?
Yes, I did.
When was the surgery?
September 16th.
Do you know what they did, Ms. Schmidt?
Yes. When the bone was broke, the muscle to his eye was stuck underneath the bone. So they first of all had to get the muscle from the broken bone, put the broken bone back up, and then they set the eyeball back up there. Then it takes 6 to 8 weeks for that bone to reconnect itself due to the fact that they cannot put in a pin because if the eye breaks, if you get hit again, it would break.
Can you see now?
Yeah. Every once in a while, though, I have twitches. My eyeball will literally twitch or I'll see double.
Okay, young man. I'm listening.
Well,
Look at me.
Like, we were just playing wall ball, and, like, I got 3 outs, and so I, like, got mad.
No, look at me.
I got mad, and I kicked my shoe off, and it was going to hit the wall.
How did you kick your shoe? If I want you to show me how you got mad and kicked your shoe off. You're standing up. Step away. Show me how you did that.
I just kicked my shoe off.
Explain to her that you never tie your shoelaces.
No, I
Yeah.
never ties the shoelaces. I
They
got
never-
to see how you kicked your shoe off.
So do you want me to kick my shoe off?
In that direction.
Yeah. So I just went like I took my shoe off, and then I just went like that. Only like a lot harder.
No. Get your shoe. Go back to where you were. I don't want you to say to me a little harder. I want you to show me how you kicked the shoe off. And you kicked it in that direction.
Yeah.
Which was his direction.
Yes.
Because he had gotten you out.
Yes.
Step back next to your mother. So you kicked it in his direction, out of anger. That's what you just told me. You were mad because you got out, and you kicked it hard. It wasn't that it fell off. Right?
Yes.
Well, Miss Edwards, Mr. Edwards, who do you think is responsible?
Well, at the time of them playing, sure, he was angry he was out. There's no malicious intent of aiming or directing it right
Yes,
at
there was. He didn't direct it at the moon. He directed it in his direction.
At the direction of the wall. I wasn't there to know if he was in the direct line.
That's where he was. Your son's not blind, is he?
No.
So he saw, as he was kicking his shoe off, in anger, that he was kicking it in his direction. Do I think that he intended for him to have a shattered eye socket?
No.
No. Do I think that he intended to connect with him with that shoe? Absolutely. Right?
No.
No, that's a lie. Because if you didn't intend to connect with him, then you would have kicked your shoe off in the opposite direction. Could have done that if you just wanted to blow off steam. And just miraculously, you kicked your shoe off in his direction, hit him, and he was the person who got you out. You think there's that kind of serendipity in this world? So, between his guardian and you, who should bear the financial responsibility of taking care of his shattered eye socket?
Well, personally, I believe the person where the accident occurred.
No, well, personally, I think that you're wrong. You think that the homeowner against whose wall they were playing should have anticipated that your son, in a peak of anger, threw a missile in the air, shattering his eye socket? That's what you think? Please. You better start teaching your son better lessons and set a better example for him. because you're supposed to take responsibility for the bad things that you do. You did a very bad thing. You could have blinded him. That would have made you feel very badly, because I don't think that you're a bad boy. And I don't think that you intended for him to be as injured as he was. But that's what happens when you act like a fool. That's what happens when you use your temper. You get it?
Yes.
And I guarantee you, if you had been on the other end of that sneaker, your mother wouldn't have said to me, I think it was the person whose wall they were playing against is responsible. She would have said, he's responsible.
No, I would have felt that I was responsible.
Oh,
Just because he's been injured many times, I've never sued anybody for that, that's all.
Well, I want you to tell me, how injured was he the last time he was the most seriously injured he was in his whole life?
He had a concussion, rushed to the emergency room.
Yeah, how long did he stay there?
Overnight.
He have surgery?
No.
Not that time.
Well, when did he have surgery as a result of being injured?
Well, over his course, he has like a frequent visitor card at emergency room from being a klutz, being involved in things.
Oh, we're not talking about being a klutz.
We took our
When you had the
responsibility.
concussion, how did that happen?
I was playing baseball and I threw the ball and the batter hit it back and it hit me in my temple.
During the course of the game?
Yes.
Well, this wasn't during the course of a game, Miss Edwards. He was out. He was angry. That's a big deal. Had no case. Your son was in the midst of playing ball game. This game was over for him. He was angry.
That, honestly, Judge, I didn't know. This is the first time I heard that.
Oh, well,
when
that's
they came to our home.
Just a second, Miss Edwards, different story. If your son said for the first time today that the reason he kicked off his sneaker
Was
in his
because he was
direction because he was angry, then I take it back. Then you have the right to say, I didn't know that.
I didn't know.
Well, now you know. What were the bills?
$2,044 for the medical bills.
$2,044 for the
and
medical
$500
bills.
for the pain and suffering.
That's a bargain. That's a bargain. You can't do that. You understand? No question. Now your mother and your father know that when you were put out of this game because he was successful and you weren't, you reacted by getting angry and by hurting him on purpose.
I didn't do it on purpose.
Yes, you did. You didn't mean to cause as much damage as you did, but you kicked your shoe on purpose. That's no different from somebody taking out a gun in the middle of Times Square and shooting it like this and getting somebody in the eye socket and saying, well, I was just shooting that gun. I didn't mean to hurt anybody. Do you understand?
Yeah.
You're just as guilty. That's an assault. What you did was cause really serious injury. And you're very lucky that she didn't know that at the time, and your mother didn't know that at the time, and the police didn't know it at the time. Because if the police knew what I found out today, that you intentionally kicked your shoe off because you were angry, that's a felony if you cause him permanent injury. Do you understand?
The police didn't know, Judge. I'm sorry.
You just said to me you didn't know.
No, I didn't know, but she did go to the police.
She may have gone to the police, madam, but you would have known it if somebody asked that question, the questions that I asked today, and they knew that he intentionally, because in your answer you say his shoe flew off. Well, that's not what happened. He kicked it. And I made him show me how hard he kicked it. And he kicked it off hard because he was angry. And if the police knew that and knew that he caused serious physical injury to this young man, he would have had a felony record. No question. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,500. Thank you. Thank you.
Pardon your excuse. You may step out.
It wasn't actually a total accident, so I'm a little shocked.
Yeah, it wasn't the whole truth.
I think he didn't mean to hurt me as bad as he did.
I just hope that he's okay, that he will be.
The calendar in the matter of Bossert versus Bossert.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Judge. Parties have been sworn in, Your Honor.
Work, and your wife gets home from work, and you got a built-in 24-hour slave.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Because you paid her no wages. That's dishonest. You left her with 4 children for a substantial portion of the day and didn't pay her.
And later today,
The car got damaged. Somebody has to be responsible. You say
Bossert claims her cousin, Jay Bossert, and his wife, Hillary, shortchanged her for babysitting fees.
You took advantage of her.
It's just sad it came down to this. It hurt our hearts really bad.
Family's family. You gotta forget.
With my aunt getting into it and my wife and them arguing and fighting, you know, I just trying to stay out of it.
Gutowski versus Gately Creason. Step forward.
Mary Gutowski is suing Sherry Gately and Lynn Creason for damage to her car accidentally caused by their children.
Now, you hit the back of her car?
No.
Okay. Is the dent you're talking about right below the window?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. Would you please, Bert, show this photograph to the 2 parents?
You may step out.
I immediately
90 on the calendar in the matter of Fayed versus Gables. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated.
What kind of a puppy did you get, Miss Fayed?
Neith is a Riesenschnauzer, which is German for giant schnauzer.
They're cute. You have a picture?
I do.
I'd like to see it, please. How many people are in your family?
6, including both dogs.
Who else lives at home?
In dog?
No, not in dog and people.
My husband, my 2 daughters, and myself, and also another dog.
What kind of dog is?
Another Riesenschnauzer.
They get to be pretty big, don't they? About
Yes, they
70
do.
pounds?
Anywhere between 83 and 125 pounds.
Big dogs.
Yes.
I gather this one needed some puppy training because according to your complaint, you found the defendant in an advertisement.
Yes.
And she was a puppy trainer. She was going to housebreak your dog.
Yes.
Did I read correctly that your husband had had an accident in the house?
True. He slipped and fell in a puddle of the puppy's urine, fell down the stairs and broke his ankle.
So he was not happy with the puppy?
No, and I had to find somewhere to board her immediately and train her. He went to live in a hotel until that was done.
Is he home now?
Yes,
he's home. Well, he made a statement. He said, until this dog gets trained, you can reach me at room service.
Yes.
Very interesting. I love it. Anyway, he brought the dog to her establishment, or she came to pick the dog up?
I called her on July 25th because I found her ad, and her ad advertised very quality care.
Okay, let me see the ad, please.
Quality, unique care.
Okay. January 25th, 2005, she came to pick up the dog?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How much did she charge?
$1,800.
For how long a period of time?
21-day program.
Now, when she came, according to what I read, she advised you that while she took the dog right away because hubby wasn't coming out of the hotel until this dog was out of the house.
Correct.
She was going away, so you were going to have to pick up the dog in a day or two.
2 days.
You have a copy of the check?
Yes, ma'am.
Like to see it, please? You went and picked up the dog 2 days later?
And when I arrived, I was shocked to find not a kennel, but a condo. A condo where she had many dogs on this tiny back porch. Here, I've got a picture of this as well.
I'd like to see it.
Not
in
a
any
licensed
event,
facility.
In any event, what you want is you want your money back.
I just want a refund on the day she didn't service the dog.
Okay. You don't mind giving her a couple of $100s, but you'd like $1,600 back.
15. Mm-hmm.
Okay, got it. What you're telling me is in this little area that's fenced off in the back here.
And that's actually, she added a new fence. When I picked up my dog, there was only half of a fence there. It was in back.
How many dogs were there?
She had 3 very large Australian Shepherds. She apparently had socialized my Neth with another dog. So that means there was 5 there at one time.
Okay.
In that tiny condo.
Can I see a copy of the contract that you signed?
There was no contract.
We did not sign a contract. We did not sign a contract at that time because I was unprepared the day that I went to her house, not realizing that I'd be taking the dog home that very day.
Okay. How many days did you keep the dog?
I believe she was with me for about 2.5 days.
What kind of association is the association?
The membership is open to anyone who is a professional dog trainer, and where the membership is about...
Listen to me. You're giving me a lot of gobbledygook here.
No, sorry.
Yeah, that's a lot of gobbledygook. Does somebody come out, for a member of the Association of Pet Dog Trainers, does somebody come out and inspect your property?
No, and that has nothing to do with the kennel.
Just a second. Is there any required mandatory training that you have before you become a member of the association?
No.
Other than paying dues, is there anything that is required of you to do?
No.
Fine. You didn't like what you saw, and you took your dog out.
Yes.
And then my question is, why didn't you give her back some of her money?
Because I didn't believe there was any basis for her complaint. There's no reason that I cannot bring a dog into my home. I didn't think of it
You're
as
absolutely right.
Right. And
but you
to
don't have a
train.
contract with her. So what you're really doing is she prepaid for services. You do not have a contract that says that once she pays this money, it's a no refund policy because she will be rejecting other dogs in order to take her dog.
Right.
That wasn't the case here. If you were able to demonstrate to me that by taking her dog into your establishment, you turned away other business, and therefore you lost money, and you shouldn't be punished, I would say to you, well, how much business did you lose? But you didn't lose any.
How do you know that?
Because you told her she was going to have to pick up her dog in 2 days because you were going out of town.
I had already blocked out
Listen
a
to me.
3-week period.
Listen to me. You already told her you were going to have to go out of town. So the likelihood of you accepting another dog at the same time that she brought, she brought you yours is de minimis. And if you told me that you turned away other business, I wouldn't believe you. That's how I know, because it doesn't make sense. So you have to give her back some money. Now, that being said, don't pay people in advance for services that they didn't render to you. Say, it's very nice that I see your ad in the Yellow Pages. And what's the name of the guy who advertises for the Yellow Pages? James Earl Jones?
It's Verizon, but okay.
Whatever. Somebody advertises for, no, that's the girl. What's her name? Catherine Zeta-Jones, Verizon. They don't look anything alike.
Oh, that's T-Mobile.
Whatever. This is not a guarantee that somebody is top-notch.
I learned. I know.
Excuse me. This is just.
This is not a character.
This is not
reference.
This is not a guarantee. The Yellow Page advertisement is not a guarantee that somebody is top notch. That you get when you say, "Can I see your references?"
Yeah, which
Can
he
I?
has
I'm
neglected
speaking.
to do.
I'm speaking.
She's
this
still
is not.
to this point
This
knows
is
nothing about my philosophies,
Listen to me.
my training methods.
The two of us aren't being heard, madam.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You took your dog there.
Says dog kennel owner Gina Gables owes for a refund of her fee. Pamela claims Gina is running a shoddy business.
This is not of quality service. Just as an advertisement for a nursery school for a child wouldn't be a guarantee that this is a good place for a child. What you do is you say, this is a starting point. Now let me see references. Let me call people, whatever. You were in an emergency situation. That was your problem. And you took your dog there on an emergency basis.
She picked it up.
Or she picked up your
Which
dog.
is
It doesn't
something,
make
Your
any
Honor,
difference.
I would never
It
have a
doesn't.
complete
I'm speaking. When I'm
stranger
speaking,
take my
only
dogs
one
to an
person.
unknown
Only one
location.
person speaks.
Never.
Only one
They're my
person.
children.
Only one person speaks. The dog was there for 3 days, 2.5 days, whatever. And $100 a day, if what you paid was $1,800, $100 a day seems like more than adequate compensation for having her dog there.
Exactly.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,500. That's all.
That's fine. Thank you so much.
Fraley, step forward, please.
Stephanie Meyer is suing her ex-boyfriend, 25-year-old Abraham Fraley, for his share of a Cabo San Lucas vacation and unpaid video game rentals.
All right, Miss Meyer, the defendant was a boyfriend of yours, and you claim he owes you for a series of loans, money that you laid out for him for a variety of things. Mr. Fraley says, move on. So, because I have 5 minutes in between cases, I want you to tell me exactly what you think he owes you money for.
It's for a Cabo San Lucas vacation that was taken in May.
You knew him how long when you took this vacation?
We started dating in July of 2004.
Seriously?
Yes.
Okay. Well, it wasn't serious for you, Mr. Fraley, but evidently it was more serious for her. Now, tell me what expenses you had and why you think he owes you for any of those expenses.
In Abraham's and I's relationship, we split everything 50-50. And
did you live together?
No, thank goodness.
So you mean when you went out for dinner, if the bill was $10, you gave him $5, or he gave you $5?
He would treat, I would treat.
Just a minute. That's not 50-50. What you said was sometimes you paid and sometimes he paid. It was not written in stone.
No,
then you went away on vacation. Tell me about the vacation.
A coworker, a friend of mine, has a timeshare in Cabo San Lucas, and she couldn't use it, and she offered it to me, and I thought it sounded like a great idea.
As well as her friends.
And so I asked Abe if he was interested in going. He thought it sounded like a great idea, and I also asked another couple who are friends of mine to go with us, and they thought it sounded wonderful too. And it was going to be split 50-50, and I had a verbal commitment from Abraham that that's how things were going to be taken care of.
What expenses did you pay for?
Airfare.
So you put the airline tickets on your credit card?
I did.
Let me see them.
Your Honor, may I say something real quick?
In a second.
Okay.
This is the
Everybody
document
has a turn
from
here, sir.
Expedia.
But we do it in an orderly fashion. Okay, now I'm going to you, Mr. Fraley. Cabo St. Lucas vacation.
Cabo San Lucas vacation all started when she came to me. She is a flight stewardess for an airline company, and she tried to put me on her benefits at a previous time when she invited me to go to Hawaii.
Just answer my question,
Okay.
sir,
Yes,
all
ma'am.
right? You know, try to stay focused and stay linear.
Okay. We decided to go to Cabo San Lucas. She planned the trip on her benefits. Upon receiving notice a week prior to the vacation, she purchased tickets without me knowing. She then said, well, don't worry about it. It's all taken care of. I bought tickets to ensure that we'd be there the same time our friends are there. So then I said, I cannot afford it. I cannot go. So I declined. I said, I cannot make it. She said, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. If you can't afford it, you can just pay me back here and there and whatnot. So I said, okay, sure.
So based upon what you tell me, sir, there was an agreement to pay her back, but there were no fixed terms.
There was no fixed terms, no, ma'am.
Stephanie Meyer says ex-boyfriend Abraham Fraley owes for half of a Cabo San Lucas vacation.
Something rings true to me. He can travel with you as a companion through the airlines at a drastically reduced rate, but you have to go standby.
Correct.
So what you did was you purchased the tickets because you had to be there during a certain period of time.
I did purchase tickets.
Because you... Don't play with me.
Because I did have to be there.
Because you had to be there during a certain period of time, so you couldn't use the advantage of working for the airlines because you had a limited time at the timeshare.
And it was a very high peak season for travel.
So you had to buy the tickets.
Yes.
All right.
But I discussed it with him not more than a week prior to the time that we left for the trip.
I understand that, but you had already purchased the tickets.
No, I talked to him before I purchased the tickets.
And what did he say to you?
He says, do whatever you need to do.
What was the date that you went on this trip?
It was May 28th through June 1st.
Well, you purchased the tickets a month before, not a week before.
Exactly.
How much after this Cabo St. Lucas vacation did the two of you separate?
No longer than a week after. We got back to my house, and she stayed with me for a couple days. And upon returning home from work one day, I found my room totally clean, all the drawers organized, whatnot. So I just started going through my drawers because I have personal items that I have in current relationships and past relationships and relationships that I was in during when I was with her, and she knew well aware of it. Yeah, it's just...
Just a second. It's disgusting, isn't it? It's hard to even say.
I
right?
understand, yes.
Right? It's hard to even say.
Yes,
so what you're telling me, Mr. Fraley, is that while you were traveling with Miss Mayer, while she was staying at your house, you were involved in other relationships.
That she was aware of.
I doubt that.
She was involved in other relationships as well, receiving gifts from celebrities and stuff
I don't
like
care
that.
whether she was receiving gifts. Receiving gifts is very nice.
And you received a lot, Abraham.
Just don't
Sorry,
speak to him. Listen to me very carefully, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Boys and girls are different. It's not just what you can see that makes them different. That's the way they are. It's in their head.
Yeah.
I guarantee you that when she went through your room, cleaned it up, and tidied up your drawers, she wasn't doing it, and then leaving you that afternoon and going and fooling around with somebody to get a present. You cannot, however, say the same for you. Got me?
Yes, ma'am.
Let us not, Mr. Fraley, play with each other.
Okay, I did get home from work, returned from work, found my room clean, and I then confronted her. Is there anything that is missing from my room or that you found that I should know about? She then denied everything, and then I called her bluff, pretty much. And
you told her to leave?
I told her to leave.
Okay, good. Fine. So.
And she never returned the items.
Okay. Do we have a counterclaim here? We do not. What else do you owe her for the trip to Cabo?
Nothing.
And you gave her some money.
I did give her.
How much did you give her?
I gave her a total of $250.
Good. What else does he owe you from the trip? Don't nickel and dime me, madam. I don't like it. How much does he owe you for the trip?
There is expenses that were placed on my credit card.
I don't care about that.
That was a bar tab.
Listen to me. I don't care whether you put a bar tab on your credit card or you paid for a meal. That was something that, according to you did back and forth with each. Was the timeshare?
$500 split 4 ways.
Okay. That would be $125 each. Did you discuss that with him?
I did.
Okay.
As far as the meals, he came with no money except $200 for this trip.
Those are meals that you purchased.
And he also...
That's your problem.
Okay.
You want to do that, you do that.
Okay.
Girls have to be smart. They have to think
why
with
I'm here,
not with here. When you think with here, there's always a problem. All right, you have something else here about some video rentals.
There's also actually a trip to New York that we took together.
When? In September?
Yes. The end of
that was
September.
After Cabo?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I speak, please?
She didn't speak yet. She didn't tell me what you owe her for.
This is my payroll statement showing the deductions made.
What did you go away with him in September for after he left you for another girl? I'm speaking.
Yes, ma'am.
What'd you go away with him in September for?
We were still in contact and still spoke to one another because obviously we're in contact because he still owed me for the Cabo trip.
Listen to me. Okay. I don't want to hear you. You're irritating me.
Okay.
She may find you attractive. Your other girlfriend might find you attractive. I think you're a doofus.
Thank you.
He was dishonest with you. He didn't pay you what he was supposed to. And you still went away with him again in September. And I don't understand why.
Let me explain this to you.
Then do it fast. I have other things to do.
When I returned from Cabo San Lucas, 4th of July weekend, I found out that I was pregnant.
So?
We were trying to decide what we were going to do. We decided to keep the baby, and we were going to work things out. He decided that he wanted to be with me and that he had ended the relationship with the other girl.
She decided that.
So I had a trip to New York on my schedule.
You're not only a doofus, sir, you're an annoying doofus. I let you speak.
I understand.
2 women may be fighting over you. I guarantee you it's not going to be 3. Listen, you took him to New York, you bought him a plane ticket for $99. Chalk it up to your stupidity.
He traveled on my benefits.
I don't care whether he traveled on your benefits or you bought him a first-class round trip. He was dishonest with you. You knew at that time that he had another girlfriend who, according to you, was also pregnant.
Found out.
So if you're thinking with this and not this, don't come here and annoy me.
Can I explain?
I don't want to hear it anymore. Really, you know, sometimes it's embarrassing to me that women act it's like such fools. And sometimes I would say, you know, when you act like a fool, I wouldn't want to broadcast it to the rest of the world. Anyway, he owes you $230. The rest of it, chalk up to a bad relationship and bad judgment. That's all. Take him out.
She's very sad.
Ms. Batista, the defendant is your former boyfriend. You have 1 child together, a daughter, and you claim a series of loans to him and some money that he owes you. You claim for living expenses. Mr. Wilson says there were never any loans and never any agreements to pay you any money. Did you have that?
Yes.
From when to when?
February to November.
I gather from your answer, Mr. Wilson, that you were not living in the same town as Ms. Batista was living in initially. Is that right?
That is correct, Your Honor.
Where were you living?
I was living in California at the time, the Bay Area.
And where was she living?
She was living in Beaverton, Oregon.
Okay. Tell me what the first loan was for, Ms. Batista.
Well, when he first moved up here in February, he did leave his business, so we had agreed that I would pay for the living expenses or help support him so that he could get his business started up in Portland.
What kind of business are you in, Mr. Wilson?
I own a gardening, tree, and landscape service.
Okay. Go ahead.
But after months of paying all the living expenses and his business wasn't...
He moved in with you?
He moved in with me in February of '05. I was paying mortgage, food, all the expenses while he was trying to get his landscaping business up. I also bought advertising for his business, equipment, anything to help him get started. A few months went by and nothing, no money, his business wasn't working. So we sat down and discussed a different arrangement because I was going to be on leave without pay when I had the baby.
When did you find out you were pregnant?
I think the end of September '04. And I told him that I was using most of my savings just to support him. I was paying even some of his bills, truck payments, including, you know, all of our bills. So I said, you know, when I'm on leave without pay, I'm not going to have any money. I'm using my savings right now. So he agreed during the time when I was on leave without pay, he would pay for our living expenses. He told me at that time if his business was not kicking off, he would get any type of job that was available to be there for us.
Okay, so?
That didn't happen. So I continued to pay the bills, and I ended up having to cash out some Nike stock to, you know, continue. We talked about it again, and he did get a couple jobs, tree jobs, during this time, so that made me hopeful that it was going to continue. But it was nothing you could count on. It was just sporadic, and we argued a lot about him just getting a regular job where there was some consistent income.
But that was an argument that went on for about a year.
It went on for a long time, yeah.
Okay.
So when I went back to work, I ended up taking 2 months of leave without pay. I was going back to work, and then the baby would need daycare. So we sat down again, and at this time, he finally did get a job. And I was making considerably more money than he was. So we decided I would continue to pay the mortgage and all the bills if he could just take care of the daycare. That's all he had to worry about was the daycare. He agreed, and what ended up happening was he worked at his job for, I mean, maybe 2 weeks. And it was too hard. It wasn't paying enough. And so he quit. So I ended up paying all the daycare. This was pretty much the last straw for me, so I asked him to move out of the house.
What does he owe you money for?
Well, I believe he owes me money for the time during when I was on leave without pay that he had agreed to take care of the living expenses. I also think he should help me with the daycare bills because that was another arrangement we have. And then I have medical bills from the birth of my daughter, which we had discussed that at the very beginning when I got pregnant, and he said he would absolutely help with that. I mean, we were talking about getting married and being together, and I did mention at the time that I had insurance, which, you know, that was a good thing. And so when the bills started coming in, his response to me was, but you told me you had insurance, so why are there bills?
Is this your only child?
No, I have a 14-year-old daughter.
She lives with you?
Yes.
What else does he owe you for, Ms. Batista?
That's pretty much it, except for when I finally asked him to move out of the house, his response to me was, this is my house, I'm not leaving. And A, I don't have the money to get my own place. He's approached the idea of, why don't you give me the money to move out? and then I'll be out. I was told I'd have to take him to court. We were arguing in front of my daughter. If he stayed there, it would cost me even more money, so I just didn't know what to do.
So you gave him how much?
So I gave him $2,000 to move out. I paid for his first month rent. I also caught up on some of his bills, and he did promise me that since he had started getting a job that he was planning to do, that he would pay me back.
Go.
When we negotiated about me coming out to live with Miss Batista, she inquired and agreed when we discussed about, family, that she would be paying the bills so that I wouldn't have to worry about those kind of things when I moved out here to Portland.
You mean she was going to support you forever? Is that what you thought?
No. I wasn't going to be supported, but we had already agreed that she would be taking care of the bills till I got on my feet.
Well, that's reasonable. Mr. Wilson, you didn't add that little caveat in there, sir. She would be covering the bills until you got on your feet because
Exactly.
you were going to make, okay.
Right.
How old are you?
I'm 43.
How much child support have you paid since June of 2005 when your daughter was born?
Probably about $800 or $900, maybe close to $1,500. Plus, she owns a house in which I had done landscape.
I don't care. I read that you did thousands of dollars worth for landscaping. That was good exercise if you weren't doing anything else.
Right. Your Honor, he hasn't paid me child
I asked
support
you
at
how
all.
much money you gave her child support for your daughter.
Probably close to about $1,500.
That is not correct. He hasn't given me a dime.
Is there a court order of support?
No, there's no court order. But
Why? Is there no court order of support?
Well, Your Honor, he just moved out, and I haven't gotten to it yet. I mean, we were living together, and,
According to you, you moved out almost 3 months ago.
I know. I have the paperwork.
Where do you work now?
I'm an official, and I referee basketball games.
You make a living at that?
Yeah, right now. I mean, basically, I'm up in Oregon. It rains a lot. I wanted to do my landscape services there, which I talked about, as well as my tree service. But it rains a lot, and I can't operate there. That's what I had told her before she agreed.
If it rains so much in Oregon, maybe you picked the wrong place to be a landscaper.
Well, I agreed, we were...
No, listen to me. This is common sense. If you can't make a living in a place because it rains a lot, doing landscaping, why don't you move to someplace where it's nice and green?
Well, Oregon is green. It is very green.
And there are a lot of landscapers up there.
Listen, Mr. Wilson, you have 2 children. You have to support them.
Prior to our union, Your Honor, we had already discussed an arrangement where she would consistently help me get on my feet until that was to take place.
You're 43 years old, sir. When is that going to happen?
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Sons and daughters.
Mother of her child, Alan Wilson, owes for several unpaid loans. She also claims Alan has a lot of excuses for not paying.
Your agreement with him was that you were going to take care of the bills until he got on his feet.
Until he got on his feet.
Well, Ms. Batista, I have zero sympathy for your financial situation up until November of 2005. You advanced Mr. Wilson money with the expectation that you were going to have a life together with him. You gave him money to get out of the house because you wanted him out of the house. The only way he was going to get out of the house is by a little bit of blackmail, according to you. That's what it amounts to. I'm not getting out of the house unless I get some money. Good character. What with this is not paying child support because he has enough to support this child. And if you don't need the money that he gives you every week, take it and put it in a college fund for her.
Oh, I could use the money.
I'm sure you can. I'm sure you went through a lot of money. Now, you have an obligation to support the children you make, sir. Otherwise, you got to keep it zipped. Do I make myself clear?
Yes, Your Honor.
Sons and daughters, they're entitled to support from 2 parents. You don't just make them like a bee and leave them. You make them and you support them. It seems to me the 2 women that you have had children with have been cleaning up after you, and it's time at age 43 to start cleaning up after yourself. You got it? So, Miss Batista, I don't think he owes you a dime for the money that you laid out to support him and to feed this 43-year-old hulking guy. But I think that you best get yourself quickly and take those papers that you have not filled out yet and go into family court and get an order retroactive, and you have to ask for a retroactive order, to the birth of your daughter, including whatever unreimbursed medical expenses you had for her, and file those papers and have them served.
What about the verbal agreements we had? He said he was going to pay for the bills when I was on leave without pay.
I know. And then you gave him more money. You didn't stop. What you were doing was, those are pillow promises. That's not a contract.
Can I say something? What about
Just a second. I don't want to hear you.
Okay.
You got my drift, Mr. Wilson. Time to grow up.
That's right.
It's time to stop thinking of yourself as a baby. That's all. Case is dismissed.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I did want to...
Kathy Dillard is suing fellow boater Roger Dozeman for cutting her anchor while fishing on Lake Michigan. Roger claims the incident was caused by Kathy's negligence.
Miss Diller, you and your husband were out fishing on a lake.
Yes, Lake Michigan.
And it is your claim that Mr. Dosman, for some reason, which he will explain to me, cut your anchor line.
Correct.
I've read Mr. Dosman's answer, and the best I can get out of it is that your boat was annoying him. And that was the best way that he came up with to sort of resolve the situation. Now, what size boat do you have, Miss Diller?
It's an 18-foot low fishing boat.
And where were you fishing?
It was off on the east side of the pier on Lake Michigan.
How long have you and your husband been fishing?
Probably off and on for 15, 20 years.
Tell me what happened.
The first time that we were anchored, their boat came close to ours.
How big is your boat, Mr. Dosman?
My boat is a 25-footer, and
Okay.
I have pictures of it, Your Honor, if you'd like to look at it.
No.
Okay.
Go ahead.
And so pulled up anchors, repositioned to a different part of the lake, and re-anchored again, started fishing. This happened the second and the third time, both the second and third time.
Don't speak. Sorry. You will have an opportunity to tell me your side of the story. Now, when his boat came by the second time, Miss Diller, uncross your hands. When his boat came by the second time, did it touch your boat?
No, not the second time.
So then you repositioned the third time.
Right.
What happened the third time?
Again, their boat came at us very, very close.
Was it drifting or was it?
It was drifting. The current was moving it.
Moving, as
It
boats
was
do with the
moving, but
tide.
certainly you could steer it away from another
Right.
boat.
Did you see what Mr. Dosman was doing on the boat?
I didn't see him drinking, but I did see the woman on the boat. There was a bottle of some type of alcohol.
And I wasn't asking you whether he was drinking.
I don't know if they were fishing poles out.
Fine.
So the third time moved again. And sure enough, looked to the right, and it was just virtually coming right at us and stuff. I screamed to my husband. I said, that boat's going to hit us. And so right away, he lifted up off of it, and he pushed away, and it did hit our boat, but it didn't flip us. Originally, I thought that's what it was going to do. It was going to hit us and flip it. And I don't know how to swim, so I just panicked. And we didn't say anything to them, even at that point. Never had any exchange of words with him whatsoever. And he was close, and he started screaming and yelling at us about something about being in his way or whatever and stuff, but yet we were anchored and they weren't. And he drew a knife. He pulled a knife out, and he got really close. And I stood up and I looked, and I just absolutely panicked and stuff. I don't know what he was going to do with that knife and stuff. So then he reached down, pulled up the anchor line. He held it. And I begged him. I said, please don't cut the anchor line. He whips that knife, just cuts it. And he goes, now you are going to float away from me. And just drops the anchor. And instantly, I called 911, and Dale got on the Marine radio.
Did they stick around?
Finally, when I think they realized what they had done, he tore off.
All right, Mr. Dosman, I'll hear your version of the events.
First off, we were in fishing in shallow water, and we moved out to deeper water. We were all by ourselves. There wasn't another boat around us anywhere. We had been sitting there for probably an hour fishing, okay, anchored in this location. As you can see from the easel, we were approximately 3 miles to the northeast of the harbor and about 3/4 of a mile off the shore. Ellie had never been fishing before, and she was having a ball. I was on the back corner of my boat, and I was working with Ellie on showing her how to get a fish off. We were kind of laughing and giggling and just having a really good time. I mean, the date was going wonderful, to say the least. And then all of a sudden, we felt the jostle on the boat, and that's when I saw a smaller fishing boat, and they had pushed off the front of my boat. And I figured, well, somebody was drifting, and maybe they just got a little close and they pushed off. There was no damage or anything, but there was a jostle. The next thing I know is I'm back with Ellie, and I'm working on, getting this fish off and getting her set up with another minnow to go back down and start fishing. And I noticed that on the opposite side of my boat, where I was fishing, that their boat was now stopped right there. And I said in a very loud voice, I said, that boat is awful close to us. I wish they would move. Never said a word, any other word to those people. And I didn't want to be confrontational because I was on a date and I was having a great time. Anyway, I continued to fish for probably 15 minutes or so. Next thing I know is I caught an anchor rope. And I realized at that time what had happened was that they had come in and dropped their anchor on the port side of my boat and floated around so that they could be almost in my boat fishing. Be very close to it is basically what it came down to. I then said again to them in a loud voice, not at them, just loud voice, that you guys are awful close to me. Probably 15 minutes later, I looked down, and their anchor rope was like rubbing on the bottom of my boat, and it was getting dangerously close to my motor. At that time, I looked and I'm going, if this thing gets in my motor, it's gonna suck their boat inside of my boat, and it's gonna cause a lot of damage and everything. I reached down in the water, I cut their anchor rope, and I just let them float.
You can't do that, Mr. Dosman.
I know.
Good.
I'm wrong.
You sure are.
But
and I want to Mr. Dosman, listen to me. You know, there's certain things that are common sense, certain things that make sense, and certain things that don't make sense. And if it doesn't make sense, it's usually not true. If it does make sense, it's usually true in the scheme of human life experience. She's with her husband. How long have you been married?
23 years.
23 years. I guarantee you she was not as interested in her husband as you were interested in your date.
Correct.
I would probably agree.
And her husband wasn't as interested in as your date was interested in you. They're interested in fishing. You're interested in a different kind of fishing. So, if anybody was paying attention to what was going on with the boat and the lines and the anchors, my money's on them. Not because you're a bad guy, but because you were more interested in her anchor than you were in their anchor. Do we understand each other, Mr. Dosman? You had no right to cut her line. Because you had no right to cut her line. Miss Diller, you don't get $5,000 because you ruined your day. I hope you had a nice day. I gather that the date was successful and subsequent dates were also successful, that she's here with you today, which is really very, very nice. Have you gone fishing since?
No.
No.
It was not a pleasurable experience for her, the lake-wise.
Good. Then I would think about that, sir. Think about, if you love fishing, I would think about that, unless she doesn't mind you going fishing by yourself. For your aggravation, grief, and trouble, Mr. Dosman's going to pay you $300. I mean, all of your actual losses as a result of what he did was $77.50. But I think you have a certain claim for the aggravation of the day, not $5,000 worth. Mr. Dosman, you got to watch your temper, sir. You wouldn't have liked it if somebody did that to you, and you can't do it to them. You had an option, and your option was, at the time this happened, when you first saw them and they were close, you pick up your anchor if, in fact, you were anchored, and you move. But I think that you owe her not only $300, but an apology. That's all. Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I was trying to protect my personal property of my boat.
House versus y'all.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Parties have been sworn in, Your Honor. You may be seated. Ladies, have a seat.
Miss Greathouse, when did you purchase this jet ski from him?
I purchased it on June of 18th, 2005.
And how did you find it?
I was driving into town one day and...
Which town?
Into Goodlettsville.
Where is that?
The outskirts of Nashville, Tennessee. And passed his home, and the jet ski was sitting out front with a large sign on his fence. There was a phone number listed on the for sale sign. I called the number, and Mr. Yaw, of course, answered, and we had a brief conversation about it, at which time he said he was already at the lake that day. If I wanted to take it out for a test run, hook it up to the car, bring it out to the lake, which I did.
He told you to hook it up?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that right?
Yes.
I guess everybody in Goodlettsville.
Yes, ma'am.
They're pretty honest. You weren't worried about somebody stealing it.
No, ma'am. I had a chain that was false locked on the fence.
But you just told her to, come on, pick it up if you want to, and take it out to the lake.
Yes, Your Honor.
Great. So you did that?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And how did it work?
Ran fine, ran great.
Great. You negotiated a price with him?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
What was the price?
$3,000.
She paid you the $3,000?
Yes, she did.
And you took possession of the jet ski?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you register it?
Not at that time. He told me it did not have to be registered at that particular time. He had already gotten tags for it, and they were current until about May of 2006.
Don't you need insurance for these jet skis?
I had liability insurance on it, actually, and was going to take it and have it registered to my name, but this
How
never
can you
would have
have
been done.
liability insurance if you don't have your name on the title?
I don't know, ma'am.
I don't know either. That's very interesting. Bottom line is, it came up that this jet ski was stolen, and you want your money back. Mr. Yao said that he bought it in good faith from somebody in a parking lot, and go find that person, because he had no indication that it was stolen. So we'll get to that in a second. What I don't understand is, how can you have a jet ski that's not registered in your name?
I just called my insurance company. They added it on to my annual fee for the year. They never asked for a copy of the registration or anything with it, so...
Then what happened, Miss Greathouse?
I took it in on October 21st of 2005 to have it winterized for the year. And on October 27th, I received a phone call from a Detective Billy, who at that time informed me that the jet ski was stolen.
You have a police report?
Yes, ma'am. I have the police report right here.
When did you purchase the jet ski, Mr. Yao?
It was the 9th of May, 2003.
And how did you find it?
I'm a contractor, and I'm at the Lowe's of Madison every morning getting materials, loading tools. A gentleman had approached me and said that he had a jet ski for sale, that his tools had been stolen at the Home Depot parking lot, that he had absolutely nothing. He needed to get tools and materials to go to work with, and he had his jet ski there and had it for sale. And I went and looked at it. We came across the price.
What was the price?
$3,500.
Okay.
I purchased the jet ski. He gave me wrote out a bill of sale, gave me a registration.
You have a copy of that registration?
I have a copy of the application No, they took, when I went to the Tennessee Department of Wildlife Resource Management, they gives you your registration. I took the bill of sale and the registration, and they gave me a registration.
Can I see it?
That's the copy of the application for the registration. I gave the registration itself to Ms. Grayhouse upon purchase.
Your Honor, at the time he had stated he purchased the jet ski brand new for $6,000.
I also have the proof of how much I paid for it from the state of Tennessee. And also on this, it has a copy of the seller.
Okay, that his last name is Franco?
I believe so, yes, ma'am.
I'd like to see what else you have. Is 402 a street in your town?
I do not know.
Because he doesn't fill in the city where he lives, just a street address. Doesn't that look peculiar to you, sir?
That's what Tennessee gave me when I purchased the vehicle, and I had to pay taxes on that amount to get my registration. That's all they gave me.
I understand that, sir. What I'm saying to you is they didn't fill out his address. Did you have an address for him?
No, ma'am, I did not.
You ever been in trouble with the law, Mr. Yao?
Yes, ma'am.
When?
Last year.
For what?
It was a vandalism charge.
Not Mr. DeFranco.
No. Sorry.
Other than last year for vandalism, anything else?
No, ma'am.
Okay, I'm back with you, Miss Greathouse.
At the time, after October 27th, I had begun speaking off and on with Detective who had advised me not to make any kind of contact with Michael because he wanted to try to make a case against somebody or something. He was in the business to arrest people. And if there was going to be any attempt to collect the money, he would do so at that time. So I have a copy of his case summary that he has signed.
Let me see what you have, please.
We both of us had to fax a written statement to him, and on the 9th of November, I have a copy of the statement that Michael had faxed to Detective with his statement in regards to this particular
I'd like to
event.
see.
And if you'll read the highlighted sections.
I'm going to read everything.
Okay.
I read it.
It just simply states that he has acknowledged the fact that I purchased the jet ski from him for $3,000, and he was going to make an attempt to make that right with me.
Well, how do you expect him to do that? You used the jet ski from when to when?
From June till October.
And you used the jet ski in good... You think...
He has a very reputable company in town. I had no reason to doubt anything that he had told me at that time.
I have no reason to doubt anything that he had told you either. I think that he was taken just like you were.
That's a possibility.
Oh, there's no question about it. I mean, I read the police report, and the actual police report, which you don't have underlined, says
At the top
that I'm speaking, says that according to their investigation, this jet ski was stolen from a truck delivery as new from Polaris in Memphis in November of 2001.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
How could he have it for 2 to 3 years?
Sold a stolen jet ski by Michael Yaw. Michael claims he is also a victim.
Now, Mr. Yao did not register this for himself until May of 2003. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
We're talking about a couple of years later. Somebody had it between the time that it was stolen and the time that he took possession of it, because there's nothing that he had possession of it before this.
I understand that.
You understand?
Yes,
and he paid for it.
He told me he purchased the jet ski new for $6,000,
So
and that's
what?
discrepancy.
So what? I don't think that he told you that. I think that he said that it was worth $6,000.
Miss Kathy was with me as well.
He has to have knowledge that the jet ski was stolen, or he has to have what amounts to knowledge, which means that, let's say, he bought this jet ski from a man in the parking lot for $200, and the jet ski was worth $6,000. I would impute to him the knowledge that he's getting too good a deal, and that he should know that the jet ski was stolen. Now, had you looked at jet skis before?
Not many, no.
Had you looked at any jet skis before?
Yes, ma'am.
So you know what they were worth?
Yes, ma'am.
How much was this jet ski worth?
Roughly around $3,500.
Could it have been worth $4,000?
Yeah, I guess it could.
Let's say you purchased it from him the exact way that you did, and instead of in October taking it to be winterized, you decided, you know, I've had enough jet skiing. And you sell it to Bird. And he says, good deal, I'm going to give you $2,500 for it. It's worth $3,000. I'm going to give you $2,500. You say, fine, $100. You buy another jet ski. All of a sudden, you find out that the jet ski is stolen. He bought it. You bought it. You bought it. Do you think you have to give him back his money?
I do believe I do, because that was my error in judgment. And Michael had agreed to pay me my money. I even spoke with him after they had considered it a closed case on the incident. He agreed to pay me $1,500 between Christmas and New Year's and another $1,500 by the end of January. I had not heard from him by the first week of January, so I called him again. And due to a problem that he had last year, he said he was not able to make payment at that time. He would pay me if he could, but he couldn't at that moment.
Did you agree to pay her for the jet ski, Mr. Yao?
I told her I felt sorry for her, and if I could do anything for her, I would, but I was not in a position to at that time. I said I felt bad. I felt bad. I felt I got taken. I felt she got taken, and the next guy in line would have been taken as well. And I told her I felt really bad about it, and I know I'm in a better financial situation than most of the people where I live, and I told her that if I could help her that I would, and I was not able to.
Are you able to now?
No, ma'am, I am not.
I think that you both got taken. I do. But I don't see any indication that he knew that this was stolen property.
Whether or not he knew that it was stolen property, it's still a purchase that I made from him in the amount of $3,000, and I feel that it is, his place to make up for that. When he bought the jet ski, he wasn't out anything. He paid $3,500 for it. He got the jet ski. He got another $3,000 for it. So he's not out anything, and I still don't have a jet ski.
You are absolutely correct, except for this. The law says that in commerce, in order for things to go around in commerce, there has to be a certain finality. And unless you can establish that he had any knowledge that this was stolen property, I can't give you a judgment against him, which will permit him to go and try to find Mr. Franco to get a judgment against him, which will permit Mr. Franco to file a suit against somebody else. There has to be a certain finality. The only way that I could find that Mr. Yao owes you any responsibility, any fiscal responsibility, is if he had entered into an agreement with you to pay you any money. And you say you did not.
That's correct.
Yes, he
It says in the statement that he would do what was necessary to make it right.
That's not what he said at all.
Also, and the
No,
reason
that's
they
not what he
found
said. No,
out that
listen
it was
to
stolen
me.
is the
Miss
bin plate
Greathouse,
was popped
Miss
off.
Greathouse, that's not what it says in the statement.
Then how did the reason they found out that it was stolen was because they apparently noticed that there was, I guess, a little VIN plate or something that was supposed to have been on the back of the jet ski. How could he have it for 2 to 3 years and not know that that VIN plate had been popped off, Your Honor? He's a man who's familiar with boating and everything else. I mean, he should have known. Where did it go? I mean,
he had a registration for the jet ski.
It also had a false VIN number.
It was registered under a
Listen to
false
me.
VIN number and a false year.
He had a registration for it.
Look at it. It says 91.
Did you have this paperwork?
Just the registration.
What did the registration say?
It said that it was a 91. He told me that there was an error that they had made when he went down and got it transferred and everything, that they would probably fix it when I went to have it re-registered.
That's really very interesting. Miss Greathouse, do you see what I mean? If you notice that it was a 1991 date.
I had no reason to doubt him. He has a very reputable company in my area. Everybody around town knows him. It says he's a very, very respectable man.
He is very respectable. He got taken just like you did. He didn't know this vehicle was stolen. I think that he should.
How could he not recognize that
Miss
the VIN plate
Greathouse,
was
listen
off?
to me. You can argue with me from today until tomorrow. I think that if he wants to make good on at least part of your money, he should, because if he has a business and if he's in a more stable position to make good, he will. But I cannot give you a legal judgment, because I do not believe that he had any knowledge that this was stolen property that he was purchased. Dismissed.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Step forward.
25-year-old Bridget Sheeter is suing her ex-boyfriend, 25-year-old Wade Harsh, for a series of loans. Wade says Bridget's lawsuit is in response to their breakup.
Ms. Sheeter, the defendant was your boyfriend for a couple of years, and according to you, starting well over a year ago, you made him a series of loans. You want your money back. Mr. Harsh says that while he acknowledges that you bought certain things, which he believes were gifts, and you gave him money for certain things, there was nothing more than what boyfriends and girlfriends do for each other. And the only reason that you are suing him at this point is because the relationship is no longer a viable one. So tell me about what he needed money for and when the first loan was made.
July of 2004. He asked me if I could get a phone in his name.
Don't go any further.
Oh.
When did you split up?
July of 2005.
From July of 2004 until July of 2005, did he pay his own phone bill?
He paid it every month except for the 2 that I'm suing him for.
Which 2 months was that?
October, and that was when he gave me the phone back. And
October of 2005?
Yes. And then January of 2005, and that was because he had got in a car wreck. He was walking, got hit by a car, and he was out of work for a couple of weeks due to surgery, and he couldn't pay for it then. So I paid it, and he said he was going to pay me back.
From January of 2005, when he was in the car accident and couldn't pay his phone bill, until July of '05 when you broke up. Did he make any payments?
No.
All right. And you let it slide?
Well, I told him he could pay me when he had the money.
Well, he doesn't have the money. Forget January of '05. Let's go to October of '05, after you broke up.
Yes.
Did you pay that bill?
No.
Then you owe it, right?
Yeah.
Perfect. See how easy this is? How much was that bill in October?
$63 and...
$63. What else?
February, he said his old phone was broken, and he had insurance on the phone, but he said he didn't want to get that phone because it was crappy, and I should have got him a cool flip phone. So he had asked for the money to get this new phone.
Good, so and you bought it for him?
And I bought it for him. And
Well,
I have the receipt and that check.
That's not what we do in real life. In real life, if you have a relationship and you are with him for 6 months, in January of '05, he didn't have money enough to pay his own phone bill. So in February, you bought him a new phone? Give me a break. What's next?
Also, then in June, the new phone, he had some problems with it and wanted to get replaced. So I paid it with my credit card, and it was only $35.
Did you say you would pay her back for that?
I don't recall that.
We're not talking about a whole bunch of money. So far, we're not even to $100. So let's add that in. Make her feel better. $35. What else?
He had brought up how he wanted to start a lawn care business with him and his friend. But he had gotten into legal trouble before I'd met him and had lost his license. He had like an OWI and was in jail for a while. So he had asked me to take a loan out of a bank for him, and I made 4 payments of that. And I have the receipts and...
When did you think he was going to have the money?
After he got it back and he started with his business.
Well, what happened to the business?
Well, he never made it.
So? You made a bad investment. Before you leave, you got to bend over around and say, thank you, thank you. This is not someone that I want to hook my star to.
Too late.
Excuse me?
Sorry, that's too late.
Who are you?
I've been there every single time.
Don't speak to me. Just sit up. Like you were in a court. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So far, I've got $98 for the phone. What else?
A TV stand. And so she said he wanted around December. So
you have to put a period. Say I lost a couple of dollars. It was much better than losing the next 10, 15 years of my life. Try to use it as a good lesson. Do you have a new boyfriend?
I'm working on it, yeah.
You don't have to work on it too fast. Work on yourself first, you know. Make a whole person out of yourself. Take care of yourself. If he comes along when you find somebody nice who can take care of themselves, all the better. But you don't need somebody who has to come to you every time he needs toothpaste. Got it? Mm-hmm. That's a baby, right? Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $98. That's all. Step out.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Yeah, this is case number 503 on the calendar in the matter of Rambo versus Godwin. Parties have been sworn in. Judge, you may be seated.
Mr. and Mrs. Rambo, the Godwin family rented a house from you. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
And the house is in close proximity to where you live.
It's right next door.
According to your complaint, the Godwin boys, I assume these 2 young men.
Yes.
The Godwin boys are responsible for at least once, probably twice, putting soap in your koi fish pond the last time the koi fish died.
That's right.
And you want Mr. Godwin to be responsible and do the right thing. Mr. Godwin says that the 2 of you have been harassing them, their family, and their boys. Their boys had absolutely nothing to do with poisoning your koi fish. He is counterclaiming for harassment. How many boys do you have, Mr. Godwin?
Just 2, Your Honor.
Have any girls?
1.
How old is your daughter?
She's 14.
She giving you a hard time?
No, ma'am.
Perfect. How many times have you been called to school because of your boys?
I've only had a couple of small incidents on the bus.
How many times has it been reported that they've been problems on the bus?
I think twice.
Which boy?
The youngest.
Raise your hand if you've been a problem on the bus. Both of them, Mr. Godwin. Now, your name?
Christopher.
Stand up, Christopher. How old are you? Over next to your father. Your finger out of your mouth. Put your hand down. How many times have you had problems on the bus?
Like 2.
What kind of problems have you had on the bus?
People blaming stuff on me, and that gets
People
me.
blaming stuff on you. What kind of things were they blaming on you, Christopher?
Like kicking other people, but I don't kick anyone.
Okay. Why don't you come over here so we can talk a little bit closer together, Christopher? Okay. Now, you think he's trouble? Your father? He's nothing compared to me. Turn around, sit right on that chair. Sit up. Turn around. Look at me. Kurt, turn him around. That's it. He can do it. He's pretty smart, right?
Yeah, I already know my squares.
Good. You already know your squares? I know my squares, too.
4 squares equals 8.
That's not the question I'm asking you. We're going back to kicking on the bus. Now, your father got called twice. Sit still. Your father got called twice because you were accused of kicking people on the bus, right?
Yeah.
How many other people were accused of kicking people on the bus? Just you?
Yeah, because other people don't like me on the bus.
Why do you think that is, Christopher?
I don't know.
You have no idea?
No.
And you never kicked anybody?
No.
What happened when they called your father and told him that you were kicking people on the bus? Do you remember?
I got in trouble.
What kind of trouble did you get into?
I think it was grounded for a day or something.
Even though you told your father you had nothing to do with it?
Yeah, because they kept coming and coming.
Who kept coming and coming?
Well, the people kept blaming stuff on me.
You mean the grown-ups?
Yeah, some grown-ups, some kids, some teenagers on the bus. My dad believes mostly the teenagers and stuff.
Because there was a lot of people.
Yeah.
Now, Christopher, you remember where the koi fish lived?
In the pond.
Well, I'm asking you. I was never there.
Well, they lived in the pond next to Jim's house.
Okay. Now you can go sit down next to your brother.
Okay.
For now. We'll talk later. All right. When was the last time the trouble with the koi fish took place?
The last time was on June 6th. June 5th, I'm sorry.
All right, Mr. Rambo, tell me what happened on that date.
On that day, I went out and started about 8 o'clock in the morning cleaning the koi pond. And this takes about 5 to 6 hours.
How often do you have to do that?
Actually, in the summertime, probably 3 to 4 times during the summer. And then I do it very first thing in the spring and the very last thing in the fall. Because once the water temperature reaches 56 degrees, fish do not eat anymore. So, obviously, nothing in, nothing out.
Got it. Say no more.
Okay.
That's
so
enough
the water's
information.
clean.
Don't need any more information. All right. Now, how long had you had these koi fish?
Approximately 10 years. I built the pond, the whole thing.
How many died?
There were 2 that died earlier.
No, as a result of this.
On this particular instance, there were 2 that died.
Have the koi fish been poisoned before?
Yes, ma'am.
When?
About 2 to 3 weeks earlier, I went out in the morning, as I normally do, to feed them, and there were 2 of them laying dead in the bottom of the pond. And this really struck me as strange because in all of the years that I've had them, I think I've lost 1 small koi when he was introduced to the pond.
Okay. Tell me what you saw when you came out.
The pond was full of soap bubbles, just looked like the kitchen sink when you're doing dishes. And the fish were flopping around, trying to gasp for air. I quickly grabbed the garden hose and put as much water in as I could, and I had to buy some pond salt and then some water neutralizer, and I used 1 bottle of that, and had to put in another bottle the next day to get the fish swimming.
Okay, so you lost 2.
Yes, I did, ma'am.
You were working, you had just about completed the job?
I had totally completed the job, and I was thirsty. I grabbed a bottle of ice water out of the refrigerator, went back in the living room, and at that point, I heard kids making noises right out by the pond, and I stood up, walked 2 steps over to the front room window, and looked out. I saw the Godwin boys running from the pond onto the driveway, the length of the driveway, run back across their front yard, and I could see all the way up to about 15 feet from the front door. And then
now,
I heard the door
when you initially
slam.
saw them running, they were on your property?
Yes, they were, ma'am.
How long have you known the Godwin boys?
We rented to them starting October 10th of 2004.
So you've known them a long time?
Yes, I have, ma'am.
And since October of 2004, you've seen them, would you say, 50 or more times?
Oh, 100 times easily.
Were there any other boys with them?
No, on that day it was strictly Charles and Christopher.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
They pulled guns on me.
Rambo claimed neighbor John Godwin's boys poisoned their koi fish. John is countersuing for harassment.
Now, what time was this, Mr. Rambo?
This would have been approximately 2 o'clock.
I think it was?
I believe it was Wednesday.
Is it a school day?
Yes, it was, ma'am.
What time do your boys finish with school?
2:40, ma'am.
What were you doing out of school at 2 o'clock in the afternoon?
No, we were still in school. We got done with school at 3:15. Then we came home.
You sure this was at 2 o'clock, Mr. Rambo?
Yes, I am, ma'am. School does get out. It's a staggered school day.
Stand up. It's your father. You have a staggered school day? Sometime in June you get out earlier than others?
No, not usually.
Do you get out from school some days earlier than others in June?
Sometimes when like we need to go somewhere or something, but other than that, then no.
When was the last time your father or your mother had to respond to the school with regard to a problem you were having, either in the school or on the bus?
Probably like last year, right when school started. I had a problem on the bus with a boy.
What kind of problem?
Well, he wouldn't stop calling me names, and on the playground, he would all act like he was better than me and stuff. And then he started calling me names and stuff on the bus, so I punched him in the arm.
And what happened as a result of that?
I got a conduct.
Did your father have to go to school?
No.
Were you contacted by the school, sir?
I was contacted by the school and the bus driver, yes. And he was actually suspended from using the bus for 3 days.
And after he was suspended, what was the consequence at your house?
Well, at our house, we take video games, TVs, computer, and that's what grounded is. They can't go anywhere, and they have no media.
Now, if I were to ask both of your sons, sit up, take your hands away from your mouth. Look alert. You're in a courtroom. If I were to ask both of your sons whether they did this to Mr. Rambo's koi fish, what do you think that they're going to tell me, Mr. Goodwin?
I'm sure they're going to tell you not, and I believe my children.
Do you?
We have fish in our house. They never bother them.
They're your fish.
Right. They are our fish.
In your house.
Right. That's true.
For the person who's laughing back there, who's distracting me, if they do it again, put them out, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
But I honestly believe if they had done it, they would have admitted it.
No, they wouldn't. I just heard 2 stories from your son about the problems that they've been having on the bus and in school.
That's what people
And it's always somebody else's fault.
Well, of course.
This one says it's never his fault. The teenagers are accusing him. The younger kids are accusing him. The parents are accusing him. But it's not his fault.
Ever.
Somebody else's fault, right? Right.
Not at home.
This one says, just listen, this one says that the reason he punched somebody in the arm was because they were calling him names and they were acting on the playground like they were better than he is. So it's not your fault, really, because they were being bad to you. You think that they're going to admit to you that they put soap in his koi pond?
I'm certain they didn't do it.
I'm certain they did.
I'm certain they would tell me no.
I am absolutely certain that they did it. As certain as you are that they didn't, that's how certain I am that they did. Do you want to know why? Because evidently, from what Mr. Rambo says, this wasn't just property of his. This koi pond, which he's had for a very, very long time, was a labor of love for him. So if his koi fish were killed and the pond destroyed, he wouldn't want the wrong people to be punished. He'd want the right people to be punished.
Okay.
That's why I know when you asked them and they told you that they didn't do it, they were lying to you. That's how I know. Do you understand what I just said? No. What I just said? Because if you don't understand, I'm going to say it again.
Yeah, I understand.
Now you can sit down. No, I changed my mind. Now you can both stand up.
May I ask a
No,
question?
I'm not finished with your boys yet because you didn't start with them, so I'm going to finish with them. Now, your father says that the reason Mr. Rambo is blaming you is because he doesn't like you. But that's not true. That doesn't make sense. Why would he want to blame you because he doesn't like you if somebody else actually did the damage to his property?
I have no idea.
That's right. You know why you have no idea?
No, ma'am.
Because Mr. Rambo saw you and your brother running away from the koi pond, where you put something, just for fun, because that's what boys do, Mr. Rambo. That doesn't make it right. It's almost like an attractive nuisance for 2 kids who've got too much time on their hands and not enough discipline at home. Because for 2 young men who are ages 8 and 10 to have the kind of school reports that get them suspended from the bus and have you down there answering problems with regard to this little one, that's not a good start.
You're right.
Your father bought you video games?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
What's your best friend's name?
His name is Adrian.
What's the boy's name that you like the least in school?
Jesse.
All right. Let's say you brought your video games to school. You weren't supposed to, but you brought them to school. And Adrian sat down on your video games, busted them accidentally, destroyed them. It was an accident. Who would you tell your father did that?
I would tell him that Adrian did it.
Why?
Because I'm not a liar.
Well, you are a liar. But you would tell him Adrian did it because you would like the right person punished, right? Mm-hmm. You wouldn't say Jesse did it even though you don't like him. You would tell your father that Adrian did it because you wouldn't want Jesse to be punished for something that he didn't do to your property, even though Adrian's your friend. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Now you can sit down. You too. Okay, now let's get to your counterclaim.
My counterclaim is that for 7 months, this gentleman and his wife have been harassing me. They've pulled guns on me. They've threatened to pull guns on my children. They've approached my caseworker and showed her physically a .30-06 rifle. They continue. 7 months later, we're going to file a suit for some fish. Really, I don't believe my children did it.
Mr. Goodwin, Mr. and Mrs. Rambo evicted you from the house.
Right.
Okay. You think you were good tenants?
We tried to be as good as possible. Yes,
I don't
ma'am.
understand what that means. I don't understand what we tried to be as good as possible means, Mr. Goodwin.
Let's put it this way. 2 months after I moved into the house, I had a heart attack and I had a 5-way bypass. I was disabled at that point. I lost my business and was unable to pay the rent. However, I applied for every public assistance program I could come up with and managed to pay off a couple, 2 or 3 months of rent through that.
So what you're telling me, Mr. Goodwin, is that because of your physical condition, you stopped paying rent.
I was unable to work, yes, ma'am.
And what about your wife?
My wife was working and she paid what she could.
When did Mr. Rambo begin eviction proceedings?
I don't really recall.
In what month?
Seems like it was March.
And you and your wife felt that Mr. and Mrs. Rambo should probably be a little more sympathetic about your position?
Not really, but I didn't expect them to pull guns and make threats toward my kids and let my dogs out of their fence.
Let me ask you this, Mr. Goodwin.
Okay.
Between the time you moved in, which was when?
October, I believe.
When was the first incident, according to you, involving Mr. and Mrs. Rambo?
Well, it was after my heart attack, probably January.
So October, November, December, January. So for 3-4 months, you had no problem with them?
No.
What do you think happened, Mr. Goodwin, after your heart attack, sir?
What do I think happened?
Yeah, all of a sudden you were perfectly happy living there. Everything was fine. You were working, paying your rent. There was nothing wrong with Mr. and Mrs. Rambo. They rented you this house, you and your wife and your 3 children. You lived there. You paid rent. Everything was fine. Okay, so something happened. What I'm asking you is, what do you think happened to these people? You think that they had a psychotic breakdown?
Well, I think he did. Yes, ma'am.
No, that's not what happened. You know what happened? I'm going to tell you what happened. I'm going to tell you what happened with regard to the boys, anyway. He started eviction proceedings against you, and you and your wife were very upset, as understandably, because you had no place to go. And your children overheard all of this discussion that was going on in your house. And as a way of getting even with Mr. Rambo, they poisoned his koi pond. That's what happened. When being in court for your sons, I hope, will be a memorable, negative experience that they will not want to replicate. But I certainly hope that this one experience for them when they're very young will demonstrate this. Sometimes there are judges that aren't smart. Most often, they will find that the judges are smarter than they are. And if something doesn't make sense, it's not true. And Mr. Goodwin, it doesn't make sense for these 2 people to accuse the wrong people of damaging their property. It doesn't make sense. Because they would want the right people held accountable for killing their koi fish. He enjoyed his koi fish. Okay, I'm dismissing your counterclaim, Mr. Goodwin. You have no counterclaim. I'm awarding the plaintiff a judgment of $326, as he has requested. Quite frankly, Mr. Rambo, I would have awarded you more. Better watch it, boys, otherwise I won't be the last judge that you see. You got it? Good, that's it.
Party's on excuse. You may step out.
Because he's a mean...
Xin chào các bạn. Các bạn hãy cùng mình tô màu cho con khỉ này nhé. Đầu tiên là màu nâu. theo là màu cam. Các bạn thân mến, vậy là mình đã tô xong bức tranh con khỉ. Các bạn đừng quên like video và đăng ký kênh cho mình nhé. Xin chào và hẹn gặp lại các bạn.